Chapter 480. The squad leader passed the message to Huang Tianfei and told him that they were about to leave. Huang Tianfei seemed to have expected it and nodded in agreement, but he continued to write on the paper. "But I can't move right now. I need your help." The squad leader glanced at him and nodded. "That's not a problem." Then he said to the soldiers next to him, "Help him to the car first." "Yes, sir." Two of the soldiers immediately helped Huang Tianfei up and walked out. Not long after, Long Yubai's convoy headed towards the city. In the new base, Wu Qingyue was listening to Xiao Liqing's report. "Huang Tianfei. Who is this person? I heard that he came with the second batch of workers, but he hit his superpower level. This Huang Tianfei is a level 5 superpower user. After coming here, he became restless. It seems that he has a complicated relationship with the woman called Lu Jun. After the two met, they immediately started fighting." Xiao Liqing told him all the information he had gathered. When it came to Lu Jun, he knew that Lu Jun was a zombie, so he almost blurted it out, but then he thought that it was a bit impolite, so he changed his words. Oh, he wants to take advantage of the situation. He doesn't need to do much, and he can eat, live, and even take rice. I'm guessing he's here for the rice. Wu Qingyue nodded as he wondered what Huang Tianfei was up to. Xiao Liqing nodded and said, "Yes, maybe that's what he's planning. And the little boy next to Miss Lu might be his son." That day when he came, he tried to take the child away, but was stopped by Miss Lu. His son. If it's his son, why is the child outside, and with a group of zombies? Wu Qingyue's smile faded as he asked expressionlessly. After investigating the people around the female zombie, he also found out about the zombie team around her. The woman with the child was also a zombie, and she was the child's mother. When he found out that the child was with these zombies, he was very surprised. But seeing that the child was well taken care of, he felt that these zombies were special, especially the one that Lingling liked. Yes, it was Lingling who liked him, not him. Oh, I'm not too sure about this, but even if Lu Jun became a zombie, his son is more important than his life. Therefore, after she married Miss Lu, the child had been with them. A few months ago, before Huang Tianfei came to our base, he was originally a resident of the Netherworld King's base. I don't know why, but he suddenly came to our base with a group of people, but in the end, he suddenly abandoned his wife and children outside, which were filled with zombies. The more Xiao Liqing spoke, the angrier he felt. What kind of man was this? What a scumbag. He actually abandoned his wife and son and ran for his life. Wu Qingyue nodded in agreement. Because he was raising a precious daughter, he could understand the feelings of those parents. He would have to die to abandon his Lingling, even if he had to give up the entire base. He wouldn't be able to do it. Therefore, he hated men like Huang Tianfei who abandoned their wives and children even more than Xiao Liqing who didn't even have a wife and children. Then what happened? Xiao Liqing replied, "Oh, he wanted to snatch the child away in front of Lu Jun. Of course Lu Jun wouldn't let him, so they confronted each other. In the end, Huang Tianfei made the first move and was prepared to hit the child. In the end, he was stopped by Qiu Lily. So he insulted Qiu Lily. You know Qiu Lily's strength, she was originally a zombie king. Huang Tianfei insulted her, so of course he didn't have a good ending. His lips were cut off on the spot. Good cut, if it was this kind of man, I would have directly cut off his balls." Wu Qingyue said with a smile. Xiao Liqing looked at him speechlessly. "Leader, watch your words in front of the child." After saying that, he glanced at Wu Yueling who was playing at the side. "Oh," Wu Qingyue said. Xiao Liqing then continued, "Then, Huang Tianfei who had his mouth cut off used his ability, but he was beaten down in a few moves. Then, he was taken out by Cun Yuanxing and left to fend for himself outside the base. I originally thought that even if he could survive and return to Haiqing base, it wouldn't be so easy. I didn't expect that he would encounter Long Yubai's team. Looks like Long Yubai's luck is pretty good, he actually picked up someone who can guide him. Let's see if this guy dares to come with Long Yubai again. If he comes, Cheng, pay attention and think of a way to get rid of him. Wu Qingyue touched his chin and said calmly. Got it. Xiao Liqing nodded. Did you tell Yuan Tianqing and the others about this situation? Wu Qingyue suddenly asked. Xiao Liqing nodded. And I reminded them. Wu Qingyue immediately stood up, turned around, and pulled Lingling out. Let's go, Lingling, I'll take you to find some friends to play with. Lingling looked at him blankly, but when she heard that he was going to take her to find someone to play with, she didn't look unhappy, but she didn't look happy either. She just followed him out expressionlessly. Xiao Liqing also followed behind him and walked out. In the office on the second floor, Yuan Tianqing, Lin Feng, and Qin Yuting were in the room, discussing the information that Xiao Liqing had given them. Young Jianhua just left, and now Long Yubai is chasing after us. He really doesn't give us any time to breathe. Sigh, Lin Feng said with a cold expression. Yuan Tianqing didn't say anything, but his expression didn't look good either. Only Qin Yuting asked curiously, I haven't asked about the situation of your previous base. Now that Long Yubai is the leader of the Earth Dragons, why would he deliberately chase after you all this way? Who knows? Lin Feng replied. Long Yubai might have come here to deal with us in passing. His main target isn't us, Yuan Tianqing suddenly said after thinking for a while. As old rivals, Yuan Tianqing and Chief Lin Qiao had some understanding of the strength of the Earth Dragons, so they knew quite a bit about Long Yubai and the other deputy chiefs. Long Yubai had always been a restless and unwilling person. This time, he made a move against the Netherworld King's base, but it was just the beginning. Because the strength of the Netherworld King's base was similar to theirs, and it was also close, it became a test. Seeing that the Netherworld King's base was so easily destroyed, this situation made Long Yubai immediately think of other bases. However, he had always been a scheming man. Although he wasn't broad-minded, his patience wasn't bad. In order to get what he wanted, he had enough patience, like a poisonous snake waiting for its prey to approach. Chapter 481. Lin Feng nodded. Although this homosexual doesn't have much ability, he's very good at finding helpers. Those who are willing to work for him are all very strong. It's just that these people can't control their dicks. His words made Qin Yuting look at him awkwardly, but Yuan Tianqing didn't have any reaction. Then, what should we do now? I heard that he brought a lot of troops. Just the tanks alone are equipped with long-range and short-range microcannons. Can we hold them off with just the zombies? Qin Yuting said worriedly. Yuan Tianqing said, our main goal is to defend against his weapons. Although Long Yubai is a level 7 paranormal, he's a water paranormal. As long as we're not near a river or lake, we don't have to worry about him. I can deal with his ability for the time being, but we can't deal with his weapon. That's right. The tanks in Long Yubai's army are already very difficult to deal with. According to Xiao Liqing's information, there are more than a dozen tanks. If they all fire at the zombies, even tens of thousands of zombies will be wiped out. Lin Feng nodded in agreement. So now our main goal is to think of a way to deal with his tanks. Qin Yuting asked. We still have to pay attention to Long Yubai. Uptown is very close to Qianjiang. If he controls the water of Qianjiang into a flood, we'll all be in trouble. That's why I said that I can only withstand his attacks temporarily, but not for too long. Yuan Tianqing shook his head and suddenly said. Lin Feng said, and we don't know which deputy leader is with him. The leaders around him aren't easy to deal with. We only have 3 level 6 paranormal here. If we send one to deal with the deputy leader, then the other 2 will have to deal with the tanks together. That way, there won't be anyone to deal with Long Yubai. Why won't there be anyone? Isn't there still Leader Wu? He won't just sit and watch. Chen Yuding suddenly said. By the way, should we go find that Meng Meng? Before Miss Lu left, she said that Meng Meng is now a master. If there's anything about the base, we can go find her. Lin Feng suddenly remembered what his mother told him. Both Yuan Tianqing and Zhang Xian's eyes lit up at the same time. That's right, they didn't realize that this was not only their new base, but also half of it was a zombie base. Yuan Tianqing stood up and said, yes, I'll send someone to ask the 5th floor. As he spoke, he simply turned around and walked out of the door. After opening the door, he said to Lin Yu, who was guarding outside, Lin Yu, go and find Miss Lu on the 5th floor. Ask her to help us go to Mount Wu and ask Meng Meng to come back. Tell her it's urgent. Lin Yu was stunned, but he quickly reacted and nodded. Okay, I'll go now. After saying that, he turned around and left to find someone. Although he didn't want to deal with the zombies, if it was Yuan Tianqing's order, then he must carry it out. Yuan Tianqing closed the door and returned to discuss the situation with Lin Feng and the rest. But it's really surprising that Huang Tianfei didn't die in the mouths of the zombies. He even ran into Long Yubai and the others. Otherwise, Long Yubai would have to search for a while to find us. Lin Feng thought of Huang Tianfei that Xiao Liqing mentioned and frowned to show that he was a little depressed. He's lucky. It's been so many days, but he's still injured. Hey, didn't he have a complicated conflict with Miss Lu on the 5th floor? If we can catch this person, we can directly deal with them. Chen Yuding said. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Yuan Tianqing and the other 2 were slightly stunned, then turned their heads at the same time and saw that the door was opened. After Lin Yu left, Feng Mingyu pushed the door open and said to the 3 people in the office, Boss, it's Leader Wu. Oh, invite him in. Yuan Tianqing and the other 2 immediately stood up to welcome him. Feng Mingyu pushed the door wide open and slightly retreated outside. She gestured to Wu Qingyue and Xiao Liqing to come in. Then they saw Wu Qingyue walk in with Xiao Liqing, and behind him, a few little radishes stuck their heads in. They were Lin Xiaolu, Tong Tong, and Lingling's little heads. They looked curiously at the adults in the office. Lin Xiaolu happened to meet her father Lin Fang's eyes and immediately walked in obediently. She stood by the door and said to him, Dad, can we take Lingling to play? Lin Feng was stunned. Of course, he had no objections, but when he saw Wu Yueling standing quietly beside his daughter, he subconsciously turned his head to look at Wu Qingyue. Wu Qingyue noticed his gaze and said with a smile, Why are you looking at me? If the children want to play, let them play. Just send someone to watch over them. Lin Feng immediately said to Lin Xiaolu, Take Lingling to your mother's place and don't run around. You're the elder sister, you have to look after your younger brother and sister, understand? Lin Xiaolu nodded obediently and then happily pulled Tong Tong out. It wasn't that she didn't want to pull Wu Yueling, but Wu Yueling didn't want her to. Moreover, Tong Tong was younger than both of them, so Lin Xiaolu felt that it would be more suitable to pull Tong Tong. Needless to say, Wu Qingyue had brought people outside. When he saw Wu Yueling and Lin Xiaolu go out to play, he consciously followed them. Feng Mingyu waited for Wu Qingyue and the others to go in and the children to come out before she came in and closed the door. Yuan Tianqing gestured to the chair next to him and said, Please have a seat. I was just about to look for you later, but I didn't expect you to come first. After Wu Qingyue sat down, he asked with a smile, Oh, you're talking about Long Yubai's team coming here, right? Tell me, what can I do to help? I don't plan to go back so quickly for the time being. Yes, we're talking about the opponent's firepower and strength. Long Yubai is a water ability user, and Uptown happens to be close to Qianjiang, so if he runs to the river and uses his ability to cause a flood, we won't be able to hold on for long, so we can only stop him from getting close to Qianjiang. Also, we have to find a way to deal with the firepower he brings, Yuan Tianqing said while looking at him. Wu Qingyue nodded and asked, then have you found a way? Yuan Tianqing looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng leaned forward to the table, bent his elbow on the table, and held his hands together. He said, we're going to attack first, we can't wait for them to break through the zombie defense line before we counterattack. That's right, if that's the case, then we have to first send suitable people to destroy their tanks, or at least destroy those weapons. Actually, it's not that difficult. As long as we send Qing Qing out, with her metal ability, she has plenty of ways to destroy those weapons made of metal. It's just that we need to send more people to accompany her and protect her. Yuan Tianqing sat down and looked at everyone as he voiced out his thoughts. Chapter 482. Lin Feng clapped his hands and his eyes lit up. Yes, that's a good idea. I forgot about Qing Qing's metal ability. It's all because her presence with Wen Wen has been declining recently. That's right, that's a good idea. Seize the opportunity to launch a surprise attack on the enemy before they reach us. I think Long Yubai doesn't know that we already know his whereabouts, but we have to destroy some of his firepower before he gets close to the zombie defense line. Otherwise, those ordinary zombies won't be able to hold on for long. Wu Qingyue nodded and felt that Yuan Tianqing's idea was feasible. The other three nodded. Indeed, the destructive power of the firepower was very strong. A single shot would probably kill a large number of zombies. So even if there were many zombies now, they wouldn't be able to withstand a few more shots. But where did Long Yubai get so many powerful weapons? Wu Qingyue suddenly looked at Yuan Tianqing and Lin Feng and asked. Although he heard that Long Yubai had found other bases to cooperate with to deal with Hades' base, his firepower was so strong that it didn't seem like the strength of Earth Dragon base. It seemed like he borrowed it from other bases. As for why those bases were willing to lend him these weapons, there should be some kind of transaction. Chen Yuding then asked, then, who's more suitable to go with her? We don't have enough manpower here, so we definitely need to send a vanguard for this operation. This question made Yuan Tianqing and Lin Feng silent for a while, both of them thinking about their own manpower. Chen Yuding was right, they didn't have enough manpower here. Even if Qing Qing was a rank 5 metahuman, her ability was a special type, so they couldn't let anything happen to her. Thinking about Long Yubai's dozen or so cars was already very troublesome, and they didn't know what other armed forces he had. Of course, sending people to protect Qing Qing also needed to be of equal strength, but even if there were rank 5 metahumans in this base, there were only Du Yuanqing, Qing Qing, Li Zheng, Qing Wangxue, Lin Hao, and a few others. Lin Wenwen was also rank 5, but she was a space type, so she was excluded. At this moment, there was another knock on the door. Feng Mingyu opened the door and let in a middle school girl with black eyes and green eyes. I can protect her, but we might need someone else to take charge here. Can you guys do that? Elmar walked in. Although she said that she would let the others take over, her pair of strange black and green eyes were staring at Wu Qingyue. The meaning was very obvious. Yuan Tianqing and the other two immediately looked at Wu Qingyue. Although their gazes were not as straightforward as Elmar's, there was a hint of pleading in their eyes. All right, since you've said so, I have no objections. Anyway, I'm also your business partner. When you're in trouble, of course, I won't sit back and do nothing. Wu Ziyue shrugged indifferently and said with a smile. Elmar looked at Yuan Tianqing and said, no one is more suitable than me. If you go, I will have to send a high-level zombie to open the door for you. I might as well protect her myself. She had a lot of confidence in her current strength. Furthermore, there were zombies everywhere outside, there was no one more suitable than her. Yuan Tianqing looked at her worriedly. Well, are you alone? There's only 2 people including Qingqing, and they're both girls. It's too dangerous. He wasn't worried about their strength, but worried that their thoughts might not be able to keep up with Long Yubai's thoughts. What, you don't believe in my strength? Or you don't believe in my intelligence? Looking at Yuan Tianqing's expression, Elmar actually guessed what he was thinking, so she asked directly. In the end, Yuan Tianqing and Lin Feng nodded at the same time. In Yuan Tianqing and Lin Feng's eyes, even if Elmar's face had recovered, she could still speak. However, the impression she left on them when she was Meng Meng was too deep. That was why they couldn't get used to the current Elmar, who looked very normal. After all, Meng Meng often hung out with Xiao Lu and the other 2 kids. She looked like a child who hadn't grown up yet. Elmar looked at their expressions and was a little annoyed. These people asked for her help, but they were worried about her. What was the meaning of this? She snorted and turned her face away. All right then, since I can't do it alone, tell me who to send. Saying that, she pulled out a chair from under the desk in front of her and sat down casually. Then she crossed her arms in front of her chest and turned her face to the side. Seeing that the child was throwing a tantrum, Yuan Tianqing hurriedly smiled at her. No, I'm just afraid that Long Yubai is too cunning. He might have some unexpected tricks up his sleeve. I'm afraid that you'll be dragged into it. Elmar only looked at them after hearing a more tactful way of saying it. Lin Feng thought about it and said, Du Yuanqing isn't here right now, so Lin Hao will bring Lin Yu and Lei Yao with you. What do you think? Sure. Elmar smiled faintly and nodded. Elmar brought Long Qingying, Lin Hao, Lin Yu, and Lei Yao out of the zombie defense line and headed towards Long Yubai's location. Because Elmar and the others had set off earlier than Long Yubai's group at noon, Long Yubai waited for Huang Tianfei to wake up in the afternoon before he set off. By then, Elmar and the others were already not far from them. Just as Elmar and the others left the upper city and entered the Jianggan district, she suddenly pulled everyone to a stop. Wait! The others stopped in their tracks. Although Elmar looked to be the youngest, her strength was still there. Moreover, she had been very calm today. She was completely different from Elmar in the past. After hearing her words, the others couldn't help but stop when they heard what she said. What's wrong? Long Qingying asked curiously. Elmar stuck her nose out and sniffed, then turned around and said, Wait, let me find a high place to confirm. Saying that, she jumped to the branch next to her, then jumped to the top of the tree. Then she appeared from the top of the tree, then jumped to the tall building next to her. Elmar jumped to the top of a tall building, stood at the highest point, and carefully sniffed in the direction of the Jianggan district, as if she was sensing something. 2 minutes later, she leaped down from the 20-story building and landed on the ground lightly and nimbly. They're over there, about 5 kilometers away from us, and they've already started to move, but they're coming in our direction. Elmar walked over and said to them. Long Qingying looked at Lin Hao and said, 5 kilometers, then do we sneak over, or do we ambush here? Lin Hao thought for a while, his hands in his pants pockets, but his handsome face was very gloomy. Use both methods at the same time. First sneak over and find out their situation, then ambush according to the situation. Chapter 483. Long Qingying and the others nodded. Okay, then let's get closer and observe their situation from a close distance. Then we'll make our moves secretly, Elmar said calmly. After deciding on their strategy, they immediately moved towards Long Yubai's troops with Elmar in the lead. They quickly closed the distance of a few kilometers. They hid near Long Yubai's troops and used binoculars to observe Long Yubai's vehicles from afar. At the same time, they observed the surrounding terrain. The formation of Long Yubai's troops was somewhat unique. There were tanks in front and behind them. In the middle, there were SUVs in front and trucks in the back. This way, no matter if there was a situation in front or behind, they could directly use the weapons on the tanks to solve it. Finally, Elmar and the others laid in ambush on a bridge. Below the bridge was a river, which was a tributary of the Qian River. Although it was not very deep, it was very wide. The bridge built on the river was more than 20 meters long. So if Long Yubai wanted to come here, he had to cross this bridge. Elmar stood at the head of the bridge. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and burst out a mouthful of sharp teeth. Roar dash, the sound was loud and clear, spreading far and wide. After that, she turned around and flashed into a nearby tree, then quietly waited. The others had already found their own places to hide. Long Qingying's position was not far from the bridge, because she was under it. After Elmar roared, the zombies that were scared away by her aura gradually came back. They staggered over and finally gathered at the head of the bridge. Roar! The group of zombies looked around in bewilderment. Although their faces had all kinds of black veins, crooked noses, cracked mouths, and exploded eyes, it did not affect their puzzled expression. Because they were summoned here, but what did they want to do here? Why did they come here? But they did not dare to leave, because they received the order to come here. Without the order to leave, they did not dare to move. There were still zombies coming out, and then they also walked over here. Both sides of the bridge were gathering here, and soon, even the bridge was full of zombies. Roar dash, the zombies that had gathered over were swaying left and right, slowly circling around in circles. Because there was still the smell of living people around, the delicious smell made them restless and unable to stop. Roar! At this moment, Elmar suddenly roared again. Roar roar roar, roar roar roar. After being roared by Elmar, the zombies gradually calmed down, and then stood still in the same place. However, the zombies were still rushing over. As long as the zombies were within 2 to 3 kilometers of Fang Yuan, they would all hear her voice and come over without hesitation. Even Long Yubai and the others, who were driving over, saw the zombies on the road ignoring their existence and moving forward. What's wrong with these zombies? Why are they running in front of us collectively? Long Yubai leaned against the window glass in surprise and asked Lin Ruifeng. Lin Ruifeng also looked outside with a strange expression. When he heard Long Yubai's question, he replied. There seemed to be a strange sound, like a zombie's roar. Could it be a high-level zombie summoning these ordinary zombies? It's possible. Long Yubai nodded. As they watched, the car continued to move forward, but slowly, the road ahead became more and more difficult to walk. Because those zombies all came to the road, although they didn't attack anyone now, because of their large number, they blocked the progress of the convoy. The tank in front gradually slowed down. At this time, Lin Ruifeng's microphone rang. He walked to the front of the car and picked it up to his ear. Speak. Deputy Leader, there are a lot of zombies on the road ahead, blocking the car's way. Should we just run over them? A voice came from the opposite side reporting the situation. No need to slow down, just run over them. Lin Ruifeng said faintly. Yes. The other side quickly replied. Then, a giant shovel suddenly appeared in front of the first tank in front of the convoy, and then the car began to accelerate towards the zombies in front of it. Roar dash, these defenseless, slow-moving zombies were immediately pushed out by the first forklift. The huge shovel at the front of the car shoveled the group of zombies into a pile, and then vigorously pushed forward. Many zombies were pushed to the ground, but they immediately got up and rushed towards the cars. They didn't care about the high-level zombies command from before. Some zombies just happened to roll in front of the car, and were directly cut in half by the giant shovel in front of the car. Dirty black blood immediately stained the front of the car, and also splashed on the body of the car. The zombies that were cut in half didn't die that quickly. They were still able to drag half of their bodies on the ground, but they continued to be run over by the heavy wheels behind them. They were directly flattened on the ground, and a large pool of flesh and blood flowed out. With the forklift opening up the road, the speed of the car behind immediately increased. At this time, Long Yubai said, "Directly fire the short-range cannon." Lin Ruifeng looked back at him, and nodded, "Okay." Then he turned his head to the transmitter and said, "The one in front, directly fire at the zombies, don't waste time on these mentally retarded zombies." "Yes." There was an immediate response from the front. Soon, the first car in the front continued to shovel the zombies forward, and the second and third cars on the roof turned the muzzle and aimed at the large number of zombies in front of them. Bang dash, a cannon shot out, and then exploded a few hundred meters in front of them. In the group of zombies that were blown up, the zombies were blown up, and although there was a hole in the cement road, it wasn't deep, and didn't affect the cars driving. The zombies' bodies were blown up, and fell to the ground, and then were pushed away by the forklift. But even so, the car's speed was still slow. When Long Yubai's car pushed the zombies near the bridge, there was already a large number of zombies gathered around. And after seeing the car coming over, these zombies all turned and rushed towards the car. Countless zombies rushed forward, and began to attack the car. Roar 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 dash, they all rushed towards the car, but were soon shot by the cannons and snipers on the roof, and immediately fell down. But the other zombies that weren't hit by the bullets immediately rushed to the car, and scratched the windows, and even crazily hit them. Roar roar dash, and the group of zombies behind also rushed forward like a tide. Chapter 484. Looking at the road in front of them, it was filled with zombies. The densely packed zombies were surging and gathering in front of them. After these zombies saw the arrival of their convoy, they suddenly madly rushed up. Long Yubai was a little surprised because there were too many zombies here. "What's going on? Why are there so many zombies here? Didn't you send someone to scout the road?" He leaned on the front of the car and stared ahead. "Before, when we sent someone to scout the road, they said there was a bridge in front, but they didn't say that there were so many zombies gathered here. And when we came here, we also saw that these zombies are still gathering. Obviously, they didn't stay here before. They should have been summoned here not long ago." Lin Ruifeng's eyes slightly sunk as he analyzed and answered Long Yubai. Long Yubai furrowed his delicate eyebrows, silently looking outside without saying a word. After a few seconds, he indifferently opened his mouth and said, "Open the cannon formation, use the cannons to clear all these zombies." "Yes." Lin Ruifeng immediately nodded, then turned around to open the door and walked out. Their RV was about 20 to 30 meters ahead of them. Right now there were a lot of zombies in the RV, because after looking a few dozen meters ahead, the bridge was already densely packed with zombies. Suddenly there were so many zombies gathered here, Lin Ruifeng suspected that there might be level 5 or 6 zombies here. After Lin Ruifeng got off the RV, he quickly ran and jumped onto the 2-meter-high roof of the tank in front of him. He looked at the zombies, then stepped on the roof of the car, and jumped over the roof of the car in front of him. The distance between each car was at least 4 to 5 meters, and he easily jumped over them, and finally stood on the roof of the second car. He didn't say anything, but raised his hand behind him, then made a gesture, and then waved from top to bottom in front of him. Bang 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 bang, soon they saw the gun muzzles of the vehicles behind them shooting at the surrounding zombies. The surroundings immediately became filled with smoke and dust. Zombie limbs flew everywhere, and dirty blood mixed with sand splattered everywhere. Under the powerful firepower, after a few minutes of artillery fire, the zombies in front of them were quickly wiped out. Only the zombies on the bridge were still rushing towards them. Advance, continue to fire. Lin Ruifeng raised his hand and gestured for them to advance. The cars immediately moved forward, but the firepower didn't stop. Instead, as they moved forward, they continued to attack the zombies in front of them. Soon, the distance of dozens of meters was shortened, and Lin Ruifeng's car was already in front of the bridge. He raised his hand and made a pause gesture with his back facing the screen. Then, he made a few different gestures. Because they were already at the end of the bridge, they couldn't attack the bridge. Otherwise, if the bridge was destroyed, they wouldn't be able to cross. After he made a few hand gestures, a group of people suddenly jumped out of the truck behind him. More than a dozen of them were equipped with advanced military equipment, helmets, and modified protective suits. Each of them held a rifle and rushed forward one after another. As these people rushed forward, they immediately held up their guns and fired accurately at the surrounding zombies. Wherever they passed, the zombies were hit in the head, and then they all fell to the ground. Soon, they quickly rushed to the end of the bridge. After shooting freely at the zombies on the bridge, a man suddenly hung his gun on his shoulder. Then, he stood in the middle of the bridge, facing the countless zombies on the opposite side and stretched out his hands. Both of his hands stretched forward, and then a 2-finger-wide ice blade appeared in the air 1 meter in front of him. As his hands moved, it immediately shot out 10 meters in front of him. After the ice blade was shot out, the man immediately kneeled on the ground. He took off his combat gloves, and then pressed his right hand on the ground. Immediately after, the ground under his hands quickly froze, and the ice quickly spread to the bridge, so a large group of zombies was quickly frozen and motionless. From the feet of the zombies, a thick layer of ice began to form, and then it spread to their whole bodies. Finally, they were frozen into ice sculptures. At this time, the man stood up again, raised his hands, and spread his fingers, as if he wanted to support something. At this time, an ice core began to condense above his head, and then quickly became bigger, and finally became a huge ice ball. The man threw the ice ball towards the zombie ice sculptures on the opposite side with great force. Bang dash, the ice ball smashed into the group of ice sculptures, and those ice sculptures were smashed into pieces. The man's attack time was very fast, and after 3 consecutive attacks, it actually took less than 10 seconds. The other team members around him all held up their guns, and surrounded him in the middle, shooting in all directions at the zombies that wanted to rush up. After the ice ball was thrown, the man immediately rushed to the middle of the bridge. Once again, he waved his hand, and the ice under his feet all floated up. Then, he rushed towards the zombie group on the opposite side of the bridge. Elmar and the others quietly watched them attack and clear these ordinary zombies. She had summoned all the zombies within a few miles of the square garden, and the number of zombies was at least no less than 100,000. These zombie hordes weren't that easy to deal with. Sure enough, soon after the zombies in front were frozen by the captain of the ability squad, the zombies behind immediately rushed forward, and then rushed towards them. There were countless zombies, even if the team's ability attack was well trained, and their reaction was extremely fast, but they could not stop more and more zombies rushing up. After killing 1, 2 more would come, and after killing 10, 20 more would come. Now, even if their firepower was very strong, and they could kill hundreds of ordinary zombies in an instant, there were still countless zombies that continued to rush up in front of them. So immediately, both sides immediately fell into a deadlock of killing. Long Yubai's side did not dare to use large firepower to bombard the bridge, so they could only use the power of ability users and small firepower to clear the way. But there were too many zombies, so even if they wanted to rush over, it would obviously take some time. At this time, suddenly a sharp roar came from somewhere behind the zombie group. Roar dash! As soon as they heard this sound, the ability squad immediately felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, after the roar, these ordinary zombies suddenly went crazy, and they all rushed towards the human team without a care for their lives. And their movements suddenly became a lot more agile. As a result, countless crazy zombies rushed over. Even the captain with the rank 5 ability could only raise a large ice shield, which just happened to be stuck on the bridge, blocking the zombie group that rushed over. No one on Long Yubai's side noticed a silhouette flashing across the bridge. Chapter 485. Suddenly a figure flashed down from the building behind the zombie horde, diving down towards the ice shield of the squad leader like a lightning bolt. Not good. Lin Ruifeng's eyes flashed, fiercely rushing forward. But he was still a bit late, only to see the figure flash down, followed by a loud bang. Bang! Walla dash! The ice shield of the squad leader was immediately kicked to pieces. PFFF, PFFF, the captain who was holding up the ice shield was sent flying by the kick. He flew into one of his own chariots and spat out a mouthful of blood before collapsing to the ground. Captain. The squad members in front saw their captain was kicked away. They all panicked and shouted. At this time, Lin Ruifeng had already rushed to a position 3 meters away from the position of the squad leader and stood still. The dozen or so squad members around him still maintained their original posture and continued to guard against the surrounding zombies. Even if their captain had been KO'd, they still had to continue their mission. When they saw the zombie that smashed the huge ice shield with one kick, and then kicked the person flying, everyone felt a bit surprised. This zombie looked very slender, the body shape was like a junior high school girl, but the appearance was a bit unflattering. The whole face was covered with scales, a pair of dark eyes, but with 2 green vertical pupils, like the pupils of a beast. A neat and tidy ear-length short hair, wearing a clean black summer sports outfit, short sleeves, medium pants. But the skin that was exposed outside the clothes was the same as her face, all smooth and neat scales, and there were sharp bone spurs at the tips of her elbows and knees. A black tail was swinging behind her, it looked like the tail of a lizard or a snake. What kind of zombie is this? Elmar's appearance made Lin Ruifeng and the others a bit stunned. Is this still a zombie? Roar dash! As if to confirm their thoughts, Elmar suddenly bared her teeth, roared at them, and waved her claws. Roar dash! The zombie horde behind immediately rushed up. After Elmar waved her hand, she also fiercely rushed towards Lin Ruifeng, her movements as fast as the wind. As soon as Lin Ruifeng saw her rushing towards him, he only felt that his eyes were blurred, and his back was cold. An unprecedented sense of crisis immediately appeared. He instinctively clenched his fists and crossed them against the front door. Pooh dash! Sure enough, a heavy side kick came towards his head, the movement was very fast and accurate. And the opponent jumped in front of him in the air, higher than his height, and kicked him sideways. Although Lin Ruifeng blocked it with his hand in time, Elmar's kick sent him flying with his hand. Bang dash! Lin Ruifeng was kicked and fell heavily to the ground more than 10 meters away, colliding with the pile of waste. Lin Ruifeng, who hit the ground, was dizzy. For a moment, he was at a loss to know what had happened to him. When he shook his head twice, he realized what was going on and quickly got up. But just as he got up, another figure flashed in front of him, and a leg covered in shining scales swung at him. Lin Ruifeng hurriedly rolled on the ground and narrowly escaped the kick, but he was very shocked in his heart. This zombie's movements and strength were simply not what a normal high-level zombie should have. Even if it was a level 6 zombie's physical attack, it was impossible for him to have no resistance at all. He was also a strength-type psychic, and dealing with zombies' claws had always been very handy. However, this time, he was a little confused after being kicked. However, Elmar did not give him a chance to come back to his senses. Seeing that he dodged the kick in time, she immediately went up again, and before Lin Ruifeng could get up, she poked his chest with her foot. Pooh! Although it was just a poke from Elmar, Lin Ruifeng's chest collapsed in an instant, and a big mouthful of blood spurted out. Just as Elmar stared at the man and was about to give him another smack on the head, a water arrow suddenly shot out from behind her, heading straight for her. Elmar's figure flashed, and she avoided the water arrow. Although she was not afraid of the water arrow hitting her, because her scales were not just for looking at, this level of attack did not give her any sense of danger. The reason why Elmar avoided the water arrow was because she did not want to get her clothes wet, and the other reason was that the man under her feet was already seriously injured after being poked by her foot. After seeing Elmar dodge, Lin Ruifeng coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood, and staggered up. If his ability was not physical, it was estimated that this kick would have burst his chest and lungs, and he would directly go to hell. Fortunately, it was him, so he only had 2 broken ribs. The blood in his mouth was completely shaken out. Long Yubai stood on top of a tank, his right hand had just been put down, and his eyes were fixed on Elmar who had jumped to the side of the building. Roar! Elmar roared at Long Yubai, and fearlessly transformed into a black figure, directly rushing towards him. Long Yubai did not retreat. He hurriedly waved his hands, and a water dragon directly flew up from the river, and then flew in front of him, instantly colliding with the charging Elmar. Bang! The impact of the water pressure immediately sent Elmar flying. After being sent flying, Elmar somersaulted in mid-air, and landed gently on a lamppost. She frowned as she looked at her wet clothes, and fiercely turned her head and roared at Long Yubai, roar. This gloomy man had actually made her clothes wet. She was furious. This water is fucking sewage water. After roaring, Elmar immediately rushed towards Long Yubai. After Long Yubai's water dragon repelled Elmar, it did not dissipate. Instead, it was controlled by him to spin above his head. After seeing Elmar rush over again, he sneered, courting death. He then waved his hand and threw the water dragon out again. The water dragon quickly condensed into a large lump, turning into a huge tiger head with its mouth wide open. The tiger head opened its mouth wide and bit towards Elmar, who was flying over. Elmar's eyes turned cold, and suddenly when she was near the water tiger head, she suddenly flipped over and followed up with a somersault kick. After flipping her body upside down, she fiercely swung one of her legs down, and directly and accurately kicked the water tiger head. Bang! Hua! The huge water tiger head was instantly destroyed by Elmar's kick, exploding into countless water droplets that splattered everywhere. Long Yubai, who had been kicked in the head of the water tiger, was stunned. He never thought that his water ability would be destroyed by a single kick from this zombie. Even her ability was useless. Long Yubai, who was momentarily unable to accept this blow, did not make any further movements. He could only watch helplessly as Elmar appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. Chapter 486. Seeing Elmar suddenly appear in front of him and kick him, Long Yubai was dumbfounded. He had no time to react. At this critical moment, a figure suddenly pounced on Long Yubai even faster than Elmar, hugged him, and rolled him to the ground. Elmar's flying kick missed. She landed on the roof of the car and turned around to look at the 2 people rolling down. Leader. Lin Ruifeng suppressed his injuries. After saving Long Yubai, he hurriedly helped him up. After Long Yubai got up, he finally reacted. He glared at Elmar and suddenly called out to the people around him. What are you all waiting for? Fire! After saying that, he took a step back. He didn't care about the injured Lin Ruifeng. He just wanted to find a place to hide first. Hearing Long Yubai's order, the surrounding tanks immediately turned a portion of their firepower towards Elmar's side. Many soldiers also came down from the trucks behind them and began shooting at Elmar with their guns. Elmar just dodged and suddenly leaped high into the air. She swung her long tail and suddenly flipped in the air. Then, she stretched out her hands toward the ground. Roar! She roared. At this moment, the muzzles of the guns in the hands of the soldiers suddenly changed shape. Then, the guns in the hands of the soldiers who were firing immediately exploded. Bang, bang, bang. In addition to these guns, the muzzles on the tanks that were aimed at Elmar also changed shape. Bang, bang, bang. After a few explosions, the roofs of the tanks exploded, and all of them immediately collapsed. She's a metal esper. Long Yubai, who was hiding in a nearby building, looked at this scene in surprise. Looks like. Lin Ruifeng stood beside him, holding his chest, and said with a face full of forbearance. Long Yubai looked back at him and finally asked, "How are you?" Lin Ruifeng smiled. "I'm fine. I won't die." Long Yubai turned his head and continued to look at Elmarch. His eyes flashed as he said, "She's too strong. Even I'm not a match for her. She's probably not as simple as a level 6 esper. Furthermore, she's a metal esper. Our weapons won't be of much use." Sure enough, as he spoke, he saw Elmar jump onto the roof of a nearby car, and with a backward kick, she broke a short-range cannon. Moreover, the surrounding war chariots were all transforming at this time. The soldiers in the chariots all hurriedly crawled out of the chariots, otherwise they would have been crushed to death by the transforming war chariots. Long Yubai and Lin Ruifeng, of course, did not know that Elmar was just putting on an act. The real master of the metal esper ability had not shown up. However, the strength that Elmar had displayed after her appearance had directly suppressed Long Yubai by too much. Now that her metal ability had appeared, her strength had increased by another level. At least in the eyes of Long Yubai and Lin Ruifeng. Lin Ruifeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, glanced at Elmar, and then asked Long Yubai, "It looks like we can't deal with it. What do we do now?" Long Yubai did not make a sound. His face darkened as he looked at Elmar wantonly destroying his war chariots. On the other side, Elmar leaped into the air and did a somersault. Then, with a kick, she smashed the roof of one of the tanks. Bang! The chariot was smashed by her scale-covered foot, and the chariot caved in. The surrounding firepower could not lock onto her position at all, so the bullets and cannonballs all brushed past her, exploding left and right, causing the surroundings to be a mess and filling the air with smoke. Looking at the war chariots that had been mostly destroyed, Long Yubai suddenly said, "Retreat first." After saying that, he turned around and fled, leaving Lin Ruifeng, who was suffering from internal injuries, to shout at the soldiers nearby, "Retreat! Retreat quickly!" Then, he turned around and ran with difficulty to the farthest vehicle from Elmarch. Then, when Elmar was not paying attention, he climbed into the car and asked the driver to turn around. "Quick, retreat quickly!" Pfft! As soon as he finished speaking, he vomited another mouthful of blood. Deputy Leader. The driver quickly turned around and was immediately shocked when he saw Lin Ruifeng vomiting blood again. Lin Ruifeng leaned against the seat, panting a few times, and said, "I'm fine, let's go quickly." At this time, Elmar was standing on the roof of a car that she had stepped on. She looked at the surrounding soldiers who were being chased by the zombies because of the collapse of the defense line. Her expression flashed, and she suddenly turned her head to look in the direction that Long Yubai had left, but she did not chase after him. Because Long Yubai was concerned about his own safety, he ran very quickly and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this time, there was still an off-road vehicle that was slightly further away from Elmarch. Huang Tianfei, who was in the vehicle, had a look of horror on his face as he patted the driver in the driver's seat, wanting to quickly escape from here. In the end, the driver in the front turned around and saw him vomiting blood, and his neck was pierced by a broken glass. Then, he tilted his head and stared at Huang Tianfei as he died. At this time, the two soldiers who were originally protecting Huang Tianfei also got off the car at this time. Pft pft. Two twisted rifles pierced their faces, directly piercing through the bridge of their noses and the back of their heads. Seeing the two soldiers fall directly from the car door, Huang Tianfei was also dumbfounded. When he came back to his senses and wanted to struggle out of the car, a cold voice sounded. Previously, I let you out to give you a way out, but you didn't take it. Now, you just have to come back to seek death. What a retard. When Huang Tianfei heard this voice, he was shocked. He looked up and saw a woman with a samurai sword on her back and a high ponytail standing outside the car looking at him coldly. Woo woo, woo, woo yes. They forced me to show the way. Huang Tianfei panicked and struggled to explain himself, but before he could finish his sentence, he saw Long Qingying wave her hand. Pft! The metal on the door suddenly twisted and elongated, fiercely stabbing towards his body, directly piercing through Huang Tianfei's chest. Pft! Huang Tianfei's eyes widened, and he vomited a mouthful of blood into the gauze on his mouth. He stared at Long Qingying with his eyes wide open. Pft, pft, pft. But in the next second, he saw that the car door immediately became a sieve full of branches that pierced towards Huang Tianfei. Long Qingying couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense and directly killed him. She grabbed at the air in front of Huang Tianfei's head. The steel branches that had turned Huang Tianfei into a sieve were pulled out again, twisted into a bundle, and turned into a sharp awl, stabbing toward Huang Tianfei's head. The metal that was inserted into Huang Tianfei's head continued to change inside. After a while, it came out with an energy core. Long Qingying reached out and took the energy core, then she wiped it on the clothes of the corpse on the ground. At this time, a figure flashed and appeared beside her. That Long Yubai and his subordinates ran away. I don't think he will return so soon this time. Elmar stood beside her and said. Chapter 487. Long Qingying said with some surprise, I didn't expect Long Yubai to be so weak this time, but you can't blame him. After all, you're too strong. As she spoke, she looked at Elmar with surprise in her eyes. Elmar was really strong. From the way she fought just now, it could be seen that she was a physical type. She was extremely fast, and the explosive power of her hands and feet was very strong. Who would have thought that such a delicate and pretty child would attack so wildly, as if she was possessed by a ferocious beast? At this time, Elmar was still fully armed. The scales on her body shone with a metallic luster under the sunlight. She spread out her hands and said, No, it's not that we're too strong, it's just that the way we work together made them think that I'm very strong. I think that Long Yubai probably thought that I was a metal-type zombie king, or that he already guessed that I was a level 2 king. That's why he scared himself and ran away. To be able to scare them, that's also your strength. Lin Hao came out from the side at this time, bringing Lin Yu and Lei Yao to the side. Long Qingying said a little speechlessly, You can make the deputy leader and the leader worry. It seems that their worry is unnecessary. No, if it wasn't for Miss Elmar, I think their worry is unnecessary. Lin Hao looked at Elmar and said. I thought he was a very strong person. So your base was breached by this kind of person? Elmar shrugged. No, if it was just him and his Earth Dragon, of course he wouldn't have been able to breach our Hades base. Because the strength he brought now is not even 1/10 of the strength he had when he first attacked our base. And at that time, there were 5 level 7 metahumans and a dozen level 6 metahumans. There were at least 50,000 people in the army, and a large number of metahumans. Their firepower was also more than 10 times stronger than here. Lin Hao thought about the battle a few months ago, and his face became serious and gloomy. That's right, and that scumbag Yang Jianhua was playing tricks on the inside. Otherwise, how could our base be breached so easily? Long Qingying nodded in agreement. Oh, so that's how it is. But this guy seems a little too weak, and he still wants to cause trouble for our base. Do we still need to be afraid of him? Elmar looked in the direction Long Yubai left with a disdainful expression. The others looked at her in silence. Boss, you can't blame others for being so weak, okay? It was obviously your performance just now that was too strong. Alright, let's clean up the battlefield and see if we can find anything useful to bring back. Lin Hao said. Of course, those that were deformed by Long Qingying's special ability couldn't be restored to their original state, so they couldn't be used. They could only pick up other usable ones. In the end, the 5 of them cleaned up the battlefield. 2 of the trucks were left behind, but they could still be used here. However, the tanks were all scrapped, and a few of the off-road vehicles had been kicked flat by El March. As for Long Yubai, he only brought along a few trucks, a few tanks and 1 or 2 off-road vehicles. The 5 of them picked up all the weapons that could be used and released the oil in the other scrapped cars. They asked Long Qingying to directly make a few oil barrels with her special ability and put them in. The battle didn't last long, but it took a long time to clean up the station. By the time the 5 of them loaded everything they needed onto the truck, the sky had already darkened. The surrounding zombies didn't follow Elmar's orders to leave, but they were all digging at the corpses of the soldiers who had just died not long ago. As a result, when Lin Hao and the others were preparing to drive across the bridge, the wheels on the bridge skidded and hit the guardrail on the side of the bridge. They almost directly broke the guardrail and flipped over into the river. Fortunately, because they had just started the car, they didn't drive that fast. After they got off the car, they looked at the layer of ice on the bridge and were speechless. Well, the bridge was frozen, how were they going to cross it? In the end, Long Qingying used her ability to break down all the abandoned cars behind them into molten iron, and made them into a net to cover the ice on the bridge. When the steel net hit the ice, it immediately smashed a large area of the ice. At this time, the few of them drove the car over. After the car drove away, the surrounding zombies all rushed to the messy battlefield, snatching the fresh corpses to eat. When they returned to the hotel, Elmar didn't go back. Instead, she ran in the direction of Wusan. Yuan Tianqing and the others were anxiously waiting for them at the entrance of the hotel. In the end, they saw that the team came back safe and sound, and even brought back a lot of spoils of war. How was it? Yuan Tianqing was the first to ask. Lin Hao said with a proud smile, "We beat Long Yubai away." His words caused everyone to look at him in surprise. Clearly, they were all baffled and didn't believe him. How is that possible? Even if you could destroy their firepower, Long Yubai couldn't have been beaten away by you. Lin Feng was expressionless, but he asked in a doubtful tone. Long Qingying also said with an expressionless face, "It wasn't us who beat him. It definitely wouldn't have been possible with just the few of us, but there was the Zombie King." Hearing this, Yuan Tianqing and the others looked at each other and seemed to have guessed something. But seeing that Elmar was missing, Chen Yuding couldn't help but ask curiously, "What about her? What's the situation now? Let's talk inside." Lin Hao, give me the battle report tomorrow morning. Yuan Tianqing suddenly said at this time and let everyone into the hall. Yes. After Lin Hao replied, they also followed everyone into the hall. After entering the hall, they saw Wu Qingyue sitting on the sofa, and the 3 children playing in the open space. After seeing Yuan Tianqing and the others come in, Lin Xiaolu stood up, pulled Tong Tong, and said to Lingling, "Lingling, let's go play on the side." Wu Yueling was actually squatting on the ground watching Lin Xiaolu and Tong Tong play. After seeing Lin Xiaolu stand up, she also stood up. After seeing many adults come in, she consciously followed Lin Xiaolu to the side. After walking in, Yuan Tianqing sat on the empty seat on the sofa and asked, "Which deputy leader is next to Long Yubai?" Lin Feng and the others all sat down, and the others stood around, waiting for them to explain the situation. "It's Lin Ruifeng." Lin Hao replied. "Lin Ruifeng. He's a strength-type psychic, right? It seems that he's specially here to protect Long Yubai." Lin Feng said with his arms crossed. "Tell me, what's the general situation? How could Long Yubai run away?" Yuan Tianqing actually already believed their words. Because he saw that they drove all 3 trucks back, and there were a lot of weapons and strange oil barrels on the trucks. If Long Yubai didn't run, they really wouldn't have been able to pick these up. Chapter 488. But even if they believed this result, they couldn't imagine the situation at that time, so they were all curious. When Wu Qingyue heard their words, he looked at Lin Hao and the others in surprise. That Long Yubai actually ran away. What was going on? Didn't they come here aggressively to fight? Before he could figure it out, Lin Hao answered, "Oh, it was all thanks to Meng Meng. She's very fierce. She beat up Long Yubai's people the moment she went up, and that Long Yubai was sent flying with a kick. Then we cooperated with Meng Meng and let Qingqing move in the dark, using her metal ability to distort those weapons. In the end, they blew themselves up. Maybe that Long Yubai thought that Meng Meng was a metal-type zombie king, and firearms weren't very effective against her ability. His water ability was also broken by Meng Meng, so he was scared." The others were all stunned and looked at them in surprise. Long Qingying said, "Actually, this Long Yubai is someone who is very afraid of death. He came here with his war chariots and weapons, and he had people protecting him. In the end, Lin Ruifeng was beaten up by Meng Meng and the war chariots were all destroyed by my ability and Meng Meng's violence, so he was scared. Why do you guys think that Long Yubai thought that Meng Meng was a metal-type zombie king? Is it because he didn't see Qingqing in the dark?" Yuan Tianqing asked, puzzled. Lin Hao nodded, "Yes, that might be the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so scared and immediately ran away. Because their mission was to intercept Long Yubai and the others or destroy their firepower, they didn't waste time chasing after Long Yubai after he escaped. Moreover, the only one who had the ability to kill him was Meng Meng, but Meng Meng didn't have the intention to chase after him, so Lin Hao didn't ask her to help chase after that bitch. That's right, Long Yubai has always been a coward who only knows how to stab people in the back. Seeing that the situation was out of his control, he panicked and ran away." Lin Feng nodded and said, recalling Long Yubai's past style. Long Qingying said, "Because he underestimated us." The others nodded. Wu Qingyue was amused and said, "Well, I didn't play any role here, did I? How could that be? You're here to hold the fort for us." Yuan Tianqing said with a beaming smile. However, he suddenly changed the topic, But Meng Meng is already a 7th-rank second-rank king. She really isn't afraid of Long Yubai." At this moment, Lin Hao said, "You don't know how fast Long Yubai ran. He only took a kick from Meng Meng, but he immediately turned around and ordered his men to retreat. Yes, we didn't chase after him after he escaped, but we killed Huang Tianfei, who gave Long Yubai directions. Oh, I'll have to inform Lu Jun about this later." Long Qingying continued. Long Yubai was scared off. He didn't know that Yang Jianhua, who was staying in the Netherworld King's base, had already been killed. In the morning, after Lin Qiao killed Yang Jianhua in the space, he suddenly came out with Lu Yu. After coming out, they still wanted to go to Yang Jianhua's office. Where is the detonator? Lin Qiao asked him. In Huo Wu's hands, Lu Yu replied carefully. He looked at the bespectacled Lin Qiao, and the fear in his eyes couldn't be suppressed. What is this woman? She even killed Yang Jianhua, who had just broken through to 7th rank. Yang Jianhua had just leveled up, and he didn't even have time to show off before he was killed. Not only did this woman kill Yang Jianhua, but she could also control high-level zombies. She could even control a zombie king. This was simply too terrifying. In Lu Yu's heart, he thought that Qiu Lily, the zombie king, was actually controlled by Lin Qiao. Because in Lin Qiao's space, Qiu Lily listened to everything Lin Qiao said, so he had this thought. Lin Qiao asked, Huo Wu. Who is it? This name, why does it sound so familiar? Lu Yu immediately replied, it's a captain from the Earth Dragon base. He just broke through to 6th rank not long ago. He's a fire elemental. Lin Qiao hugged her chest and scratched her chin as she thought. Fire elemental. From the Earth Dragon base. Just broke through to 6th rank. Why do I feel like I've heard this name before? At this moment, footsteps suddenly came from outside the door, and a somewhat familiar smell came in. After a while, she heard someone shouting at the door, everything is almost ready. Can we go? Then a man walked in, and when he suddenly saw Lin Qiao in the room, he was stunned. Yo, where did this beauty come from? Hello, beauty, what's your name? After seeing Lin Qiao, the man's eyes lit up, and he immediately came over and asked Lin Qiao excitedly. Lu Yu, who was next to him, pointed at him with cold sweat on his forehead and said to Lin Qiao, Hey, he's Huo Wu. When Huo Wu heard Lin Yu's words, he immediately laughed proudly. Hey, did you guys just talk about me? That's right, I'm Huo Wu. Beauty, what can I do for you? He stared at Lin Qiao. Even though Lin Qiao was wearing sunglasses, her delicate oval face, delicate and flawless skin, tall figure, and especially her big breasts. At this moment, he happened to hear that the other party was talking about him, so his interest was even greater. The corner of Lin Qiao's mouth curled up, and she laughed. Oh, so it's you. We've met before. You might have forgotten. Her words stunned Huo Wu and Lu Yu at the same time. Lu Yu looked at Lin Qiao in surprise. Huo Wu was also very surprised and asked with a smile, Oh. Have we met before? Where? That's impossible. If I had met such an outstanding beauty like you, I wouldn't have forgotten you. Huo Wu was so seduced by Lin Qiao that he even forgot his purpose of coming here. Now he only cared about seducing the beauty, and he didn't even notice that there was one less person in the room. However, he didn't see the deeper meaning in Lin Qiao's smile until Lin Qiao said something. Oh, have you forgotten? Do you still remember Yangqing? Lin Qiao said with a faint smile. The smile on Huo Wu's face froze for a moment, and then he looked at her blankly for a few seconds. Suddenly, the smile on his face gradually faded. You know Yangqing. What's his relationship with you? After the smile on his face disappeared, he still asked blankly. Lin Qiao smiled and walked to Yang Jianhua's desk, then leaned on the edge of the desk, and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She said, Oh, Yangqing was killed by me, and I also saved Du Yuanqing and Long Qingying from your hands. Have you forgotten? After she finished this sentence, Huo Wu's expression froze again, and then his face darkened. He looked at Lin Qiao coldly. You're that spatial ability user. Chapter 489. After hearing Huo Wu's words, Lin Qiao smiled calmly and said, Yes, it's me. That's right, this Huo Wu was the one who chased Long Qingying when she came to the south and met Du Yuanqing and Long Qingying. And that Yangqing was the one who brought Huo Wu to find trouble with Du Yuanqing. Later, she threw him into the lake in the space and sucked him dry by Little Man. She also rescued Du Yuanxing and Long Qingying from Huo Wu's hands. At that time, she was not strong enough to deal with this person, so she attacked him from behind. But now it was different. Huo Wu's face immediately turned cold. He smiled coldly and said, oh. So it's you. I let you escape that time, and you even took that woman Long Qingying away. Now you're here in front of me, are you here to turn yourself in? Okay, let me sleep with you first. Let's see if you can make me feel good, and then let our brothers sleep with you. If you make everyone feel good, you can be forgiven. After hearing this, Lu Yu, who was originally stunned, suddenly retreated slowly with a face full of cold sweat. He was about to squat in a corner far away to hide his existence. However, at this time, Huo Wu suddenly turned his face and shouted at him, Lu Yu, did you let this woman in? Lu Yu quickly looked at Lin Qiao and ignored Huo Wu's question. Seeing that Lu Yu was ignoring him, Huo Wu suddenly felt that something was wrong. At this time, he suddenly remembered that Yang Jianhua, whom he came to find, was not there. Lu Yu, what's wrong with you? Where's Yang Jianhua? He immediately shouted at Lu Yu. Lu Yu looked at Lin Qiao and saw that she was just smiling as if it had nothing to do with her. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind and he turned his head to look at Huo Wu. Don't worry about where Yang Jianhua is. Huo Wu, if you want to live, hand over the detonator first. When Huo Wu heard this, he glared at him and scolded, what do you want the detonator for? I order you to arrest this woman. Do you know who she is? Don't stand with her. He didn't take Lu Yu's words seriously at all. Lu Yu said anxiously, don't talk about this. Hurry up and take out the detonator. Where's the detonator? Huo Wu stared at him for 2 seconds, then suddenly shifted his gaze to Lin Qiao and said, did this woman ask you to find the detonator? Why did you listen to her? Lu Yu saw that he could not get through and could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. His expression turned cold as he said indifferently, if you don't want to die, you'd better hand over the detonator. Aren't you looking for Yang Jianhua? He's dead. What? Dead? Didn't he just reach level 7? Huo Wu was stunned, and he asked in disbelief. Yes, dead. Lu Yu nodded indifferently. Impossible. You're not colluding with her to trick me, are you? Who here could kill Yang Jianhua? Her. Huo Wu looked at Lu Yu with disdain. Lu Yu looked at Lin Qiao at this time. Seeing her expression, he turned his head and said to Huo Wu sympathetically, yes, he died in her hands. If you don't want to die, hand over the detonator. Maybe she'll spare your life. Ha 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 ha. What kind of joke are you talking about? Are you kidding me? She can kill Yang Jianhua. You know that she didn't even dare to show up when she fought with me a few months ago. She only dared to save people into the space when I wasn't paying attention. Now you're saying that she killed level 7 Yang Jianhua? This is too funny. However, Huo Wu laughed as if he had heard a big joke, and he looked at Lu Yu with a mocking expression. TSK. Lu Yu closed his eyes helplessly and turned his head to avoid looking at him. At this time, Lin Qiao suddenly swung her hand. Plop. Something the size of a football fell to the ground and rolled to Huo Wu's feet. Huo Wu subconsciously looked down, and his entire body froze. This was because this thing was a human head, and the face of the head was facing him. He knew this face. It was Yang Jianhua's face. There was a hole on top of Yang Jianhua's head. Everyone knew what this hole meant. It meant that the energy core in Yang Jianhua's head had been taken out. Huo Wu didn't believe Lu Yu's words just now. When the head fell, he recognized it was Yang Jianhua's head. He still didn't believe it for a few seconds. He thought he was seeing things. However, after looking at it for a few more seconds, he finally confirmed that the head with the big eyes was Yang Jianhua's. Huo Wu was stunned. When he came to his senses, he suddenly took a few steps back and looked at Lin Qiao in disbelief. Before he could digest this shocking thing, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his fingers hanging by his side. He looked down and the psychological fear and physical pain immediately made him scream. "Ah, my finger! My finger!" He saw that his 5 fingers were covered in a layer of black gas, and a section of his finger had disappeared. It had been swallowed up to the length of his fingernail, and it was quickly swallowed up. 2 to 3 seconds after he opened his mouth to scream, he watched helplessly as a small portion of his finger was gradually devoured. At this time, Lin Qiao stood up and walked toward him. He turned around and asked, "Where's the detonator?" Huo Wu's heart felt like it was going to explode from the pain in his fingers. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart, and this pain was not something that could be easily endured. He subconsciously used his other hand to clasp the wrist that had been devoured. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain until his veins popped and his face turned red. Seeing Lin Qiao walk up to him and ask him questions, he subconsciously raised his head and stared at her. "Ah, my hand, how could my hand be like this?" He stared at Lin Qiao while lowering his head to look at his missing fingers in fear. All of his fingers had disappeared. The black fog had already swallowed his palm. "Hand over the detonator and you might be able to keep your arm," Lin Qiao said as he circled around him. Stop first." Huo Wu's legs were already weak from the pain. He suddenly knelt on the ground with a thud and begged for mercy. Lin Qiao waved her hand, and the wisp of black gas left his hand and floated into the air. Then, it rotated on Lin Qiao's raised fingertip. As for Huo Wu's fingerless hand, because of the departure of the black gas, the wound immediately became visible. His flesh, tendons, and bones were all exposed, and blood was gushing out. "Wu!" Huo Wu immediately hugged his hand with a sad face and said in pain, "The detonator. Detonate in your mother's." Suddenly, his expression became ferocious. He suddenly raised his uninjured hand and shot out a high-temperature flame at Lin Qiao. In the end, Lin Qiao disappeared in a flash and reappeared behind Huo Wu. She had a nonchalant expression on her face, but one of her claws had pierced into the back of his head at some point in time. Chapter 490. Huo Wu's ferocious expression instantly froze on his face. There was a soft sound, and Lin Qiao pulled his finger out. Between his fingers was an energy core that was glowing faintly. Plop! Huo Wu's body slowly fell to the ground. "Ah, you killed him. What about the detonator?" Lu Yu looked at Lin Qiao in surprise. Lin Qiao didn't say anything. Instead, she squatted down and wiped the energy core on the fabric of Huo Wu's clothes before throwing it into the space. Then she reached out and searched Huo Wu's body. Sure enough, she found a remote control in the pocket of his military trousers. Lu Yu looked at her in surprise and couldn't help asking, "You know he has the detonator on him. What if he put it somewhere else?" Lin Qiao stood up with the detonator and said to him, "You talk a little too much. Is it good for you to know too much?" Lu Yu immediately shut his mouth tightly. Lin Qiao picked up Yang Jianhua's head and threw it into the space before standing up. "That's enough. Go down and defuse the bomb again according to Yang Jianhua's orders. I will watch you from behind." As she spoke, she waved her hand at Huo Wu's body. A palm-wide black mist flew out and floated down to Huo Wu's body. Lu Yu watched as his body was devoured clean. Not even blood flowed out. There was still some blood on the ground from Huo Wu's hand. Of course, Lin Qiao knew that the detonator was on Huo Wu's body. When she walked up to Huo Wu and asked him, she sensed his thoughts. Therefore, When she knew that the position of the detonator in his heart flashed past and that he was about to explode and attack her, Lin Qiao had already dodged in advance. Lu Yu was stunned when he heard her words. He nodded and said, "I know." Lin Qiao smiled faintly and said to him, "If you want to live a little longer, you have to work for me honestly. If you dare to have any ideas, you will only die faster." Lu Yu couldn't see her eyes. He could only see the reflective sunglasses, but this made him feel even more strange about Lin Qiao. Moreover, she killed the level 6 Huo Wu in an instant. She even killed the level 7 Yang Jianhua silently. How strong was she? Level 8. No way, Lu Yu was startled by this thought. It was already very good to be able to break through to the 7th level. As for the 8th level, he didn't even dare to think about it. After Lin Qiao finished speaking, he turned around and disappeared into thin air in front of him. He jumped out of the window on the 2nd floor stealthily. Lu Yu, who was left here alone, struggled in his heart, not knowing whether he should slip away or not. He really wanted to take advantage of the fact that the other party was bold enough to leave him alone and immediately run away. However, the other party had just threatened him with a smile on his face. If he dared to be disobedient, his life would be shortened. He wasn't sure if the mysterious woman would really keep an eye on him if he ran away now. He didn't know if she was just bluffing him or if she really meant what she said. What if she was really watching him? If he ran away, wouldn't he be courting death? But if he stayed by her side and worked for her, he didn't know how long he could live. In the end, he still did not dare to take the risk of running away, so he obediently followed her instructions and went down to fake Yang Jianhua's order to defuse the bomb. Anyway, if Yang Jianhua died, these people wouldn't know. Finally, he also thought of the captives and suddenly guessed the woman's position. He quickly ran to the captives and gave them a fake order to stop hanging the living people out of the wall. Although he knew that it was a bit unrealistic for him to make a last-minute effort like this, in order to survive, he could only try his best to catch as many people as possible. On the other side, after Lin Qiao turned invisible and jumped out of the base from a high place, she suddenly turned around and roared at the city wall. Roar dash! This roar immediately attracted the attention of all the humans and zombies in the surrounding area. The humans all took out their binoculars and looked over, but after looking for a few minutes, they couldn't see anything suspicious. But this roar, the experienced people could already tell that it was the roar of a very high-level zombie. This thought made them a little flustered. The soldiers stationed in the Hell King's base knew that Yang Jianhua had been promoted to a 7th-level psychic, so they didn't have much worry in their hearts. On the other side, Duan Wan and the others were like frightened birds, panicking and hiding. Roar dash! The large group of tens of thousands of zombies under the city wall suddenly collectively stopped moving. After 2 seconds, they reacted and looked back in a daze. After a few more seconds, the zombies at the back of the zombie group all turned around and began to walk out of the vacuum zone. At this time, the zombies under the wall suddenly lost interest in the row of people hanging on the wall, all turned around and walked out of the vacuum zone. At this time, a few nimble high-level zombies jumped out from the group of zombies, stepping on the heads of the zombies and taking the lead to rush out. Soon, the ability users or sentinels on the top of the city wall immediately noticed this phenomenon, and all of them showed blank and surprised expressions. What's going on? Why did the zombie group retreat? There was a high-level zombies roar just now, it must have called these zombies over. Then, is that high-level zombie preparing to lead these zombies to attack us? Look, the zombies have stopped in the vacuum zone. What are they going to do? There are also a few level 2 or 3 zombies. These people were surprised to find that after these zombies left the city wall, they stopped in the vacuum zone, and then began to line up, blocking all the exits outside the city wall. A large number of zombies blocked the way, immediately forming a 10-meter wide zombie isolation belt. After Lin Qiao shouted the order, she directly jumped in Duan Wan's direction, ignoring the zombie group. In less than 2 minutes, she found the roof where Duan Wan and the others were, standing on the edge of the roof. "Don't hide, come out. Don't worry, those zombies won't come here," she indifferently said to the empty roof. After saying that for a dozen seconds, no one appeared. But Lin Qiao was not in a hurry, quietly waiting. Until about half a minute later, a figure slowly appeared from the side of the cover. Duan Wan nervously leaned on the edge of the building, looking down to observe the movement around, and finally saw the group of zombies standing quietly in the vacuum zone a few hundred meters ahead. What's going on? She was surprised to see those zombies. Chapter 491. Lin Qiao said, "Don't worry about the zombies first. You should be able to fulfill your promise to me." With that, she swung her hand and threw something out. Duan Wan only saw a black thing the size of a soccer ball fall to the ground in front of her and then roll to her feet. If it was a normal person, they would be scared to death when they saw this black bloody thing. But Duan Wan didn't. She stared at the head that rolled in front of her in shock. That's right, it was a head. Moreover, it was someone she knew. She wanted to kill him but didn't have the strength to do so. Yang Jianhua. This is his head. Duan Wan's eyes widened and she couldn't believe it and blurted out. Lin Qiao nodded, "That's right. Didn't you want me to kill him? Now that he's dead and you saw the head, you can check if it's real or fake." Duan Wan didn't even need to check to know that it was a real human head. It was dripping with blood, and she could still distinguish the widened eyes and the twisted expression on the face. "No need to check. I can tell if it's real or fake," she murmured to Lin Qiao. Then she suddenly raised her head and looked at her in surprise. Did you kill him?" Lin Qiao spread out his hands and said lazily, "Yes. Of course I killed him when I threw it to you. Can't it be someone else? Well, since you've confirmed that it's real, you can take me to that place." Duan Wan nodded without hesitation. She looked at the direction of the base. It seemed that the attention of the zombies was attracted by the abnormal zombies and they wouldn't notice them. "Okay, I'll take you there." She nodded to Lin Qiao. That place would slowly become a forbidden area in the future. It wasn't a secret. Even if she didn't say it now, people would find out in the future. Moreover, she wanted to exchange Yang Jianhua's head. She couldn't refuse. Duan Wan continued. "That place is by the sea. It's a 2 to 3 hour drive from here. But we don't have a car." Then she looked at Lin Qiao awkwardly. Lin Qiao had killed Yang Jianhua for her, so she really should take the team to the destination. Of course, it would be best if they provided the car, but they were in a very poor situation now. Not to mention the car, they didn't even have enough food for the team. Lin Qiao, who was very close to her, discovered what she was thinking. She suddenly said to Duan Wan, "I have this car, and I'm not in a hurry. Let me ask you, are you going to Huadong Haiqing next?" Duan Wan looked at her and nodded. "Yes, we are going there. Is there a problem?" Lin Qiao smiled and said, "After you take me to that place, I will also rush back there. It just so happens that we are going the same way. Do you want to come with me?" She was telling the truth. Since these people were going to find Yuan Tianqing, she would just bring them along. In any case, Duan Wan was originally his subordinate and would probably continue to follow him after the apocalypse. When Duan Wan heard her words, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. Because of their first deal, Lin Qiao did indeed do what she said and gave Duan Wan a very good impression. However, she didn't have much of an emotional fluctuation and just looked at Lin Qiao calmly. She opened her mouth and asked, "Do you need us to do anything else?" Lin Qiao smiled. She knew what this woman would ask. At this time, the other people who were hiding also came out. They all quietly watched the two of them talk and didn't say anything. However, their eyes were fixed on Yang Jianhua's head on the ground. All of them looked like they couldn't wait to step on it. Lin Qiao smiled and turned her head to point at the broken Netherworld King's base. Look, those foreign soldiers and traitors haven't been dealt with yet. How can they leave so easily? The eyes of Duanwan and the people next to her lit up and suddenly looked at her with anticipation. From this head, they could already see Lin Qiao's strength. With such a god suddenly appearing to help them, they wouldn't have to spend so much effort to enter the base to get supplies and food. Moreover, from the other side's words, it seemed like Duanwan was a little uncertain and asked her, "You mean, we should go and drive them all away now?" Lin Qiao nodded, "That's right. Right now, almost all the people left in the base are Yang Jianhua's people. Moreover, he doesn't have many subordinates. Now that he's dead, it'll be very easy to take back control of the base." Duanwan thought about it and was very tempted. However, she still said with some hesitation, "But, there's still a rank 6 metahuman in the base. There are also many rank 5 metahumans. Moreover, there are almost 30,000 soldiers. With such strong firepower, can the few of us deal with them?" Lin Qiao raised her finger and shook it at her. She smiled and said, "Tsk tisk tsk, I don't need you guys to drive those soldiers away. With them, it's enough." As she said that, she pointed to the empty area below the building. Duanwan and the others looked over with a blank face. Then, they looked back at Lin Qiao with a blank face. Their faces were full of puzzlement. They. Are you joking with us?" Lin Qiao smiled and said, "Believe me, I'm definitely not joking." However, when she saw the usually calm Duanwan's confused expression, she really wanted to laugh. She couldn't help but tease her again. Duanwan didn't know why she heard the teasing in her words. Her face became a little dark. "We really don't need you guys to deal with them. Wait for a few minutes after I leave. Pay attention to the sentries on the wall. Then, the gate of the base will open. When the gate opens, you guys can just walk into the base from the gate." Lin Qiao continued to say to her. This time, before Duanwan could say anything, a younger man beside her blurted out. "You want us to walk through the gate? Are you blind? Don't you see that many zombies down there? You want us to give meat to the zombies? Xiao Mu, watch your words." Duanwan immediately said to the young man. I didn't say anything wrong." After being scolded by Duanwan, the young man named Xiao Mu murmured and turned his head to look elsewhere with an unconvinced look on his face. "If I say that I can let you guys walk through the zombies as if there's no one around, do you guys believe me?" Lin Qiao suddenly smiled mysteriously and walked toward them. After passing by everyone, she stood to the side and said, "How about it? Do you guys want to play something exciting? You guys can watch me get close to those zombies and see if they will attack me. Then, you guys can decide if you want to come down or not. Wait for me to get rid of the snipers on the wall. Whether you guys want to play this game or not depends on when the gate opens." Chapter 492. Wait for me to get rid of the snipers on the wall. Whether you want to play this game or not, it's up to you to decide after the gate is opened. After Lin Qiao said this, she suddenly jumped to the edge of the building and watched them fall with their backs facing the outside. Duanwan and the others were shocked by her action. They subconsciously ran over to look down, but Lin Qiao's figure was already gone. A transparent figure quickly flashed to the empty area, then jumped over the 10-meter-thick zombie barrier wall and rushed toward the wall. When she reached the gate, she waved her hand, and a black gas appeared out of thin air outside the metal door. Then the black gas adhered to the thick door. Immediately, the alarm system at the gate sounded, and a burst of sirens and whistles sounded continuously. The people from the gate immediately ran to see the surveillance, and saw that the gate was filled with a black gas. "Look, what's on the gate?" They were shocked by what they saw on the surveillance video. They didn't know what the hell that layer of black gas was, but it looked very creepy. The soldiers, who were originally nervous because of the zombie horde, immediately tensed their nerves and rushed in to see the situation. Soon, they saw from the surveillance screen that the black gas on the metal door began to melt the metal door. The gas sank into the metal door, but the metal door disappeared little by little. "The gate is about to be broken, hurry. Go and report. Prepare for battle." "Yes." Lin Chao saw that the black gas had swallowed a hole that was as tall as a person and could fit a person. Behind it, there were countless guns pointing at it. But when they saw that there was nothing outside the door, the soldiers in charge of guarding the gate panicked, because they couldn't see anything on the surveillance video. Lin Chao watched as a row of soldiers raised their rifles and stood a meter away from the door. She then gently sneaked in and jumped on top of their heads. With a somersault, she jumped over the soldiers' line of defense. The soldiers stared at the door for a while, but they didn't find anything. Then, someone who seemed to be the captain suddenly shouted. "First, use steel plates to block it. Have you found the metal-type psychic?" Soon, some soldiers came over with steel plates that were removed from other things and carefully blocked the hole. Duan and the others on the rooftop of the opposite building immediately noticed the sirens on the gate. They took out their nightmare mirror and looked at the gate. "What's going on? Is it that woman's doing?" Looking at the moving figures at the gate, the atmosphere seemed to be very chaotic. "I don't know. I didn't see her," Duan said. On this side, Lin Qiao leaped over these soldiers and jumped onto a crooked but not falling pole. She sniffed the interior of the base. Very good, that man didn't run away. He seemed to be actively leading people to defuse the bomb. After Lin Qiao confirmed that he was not running, he walked in the other direction. There was a school on the outskirts of the base. There were soldiers guarding the dormitories and teaching buildings with weapons in their hands. There was not a single blind spot that could be missed. Lin Qiao could smell that there were a lot of people in the building, but it was also accompanied by a sour and pungent smell. Be it the dormitories or the teaching buildings, most of the doors and windows were sealed with steel bars. Only the iron gate could be opened, but it was also locked and bolted. Lin Qiao stood in front of the teaching building and sensed the various smells on it. There were many different human smells here, so Lin Qiao knew that other than the dormitories, there were also many people locked up in the classrooms. She flashed and entered the space. Then, she stood in front of the gate of the small building and roared. "Hey! Gather here!" Chiu Lily poked her head down from the rooftop and asked, "Are you done with the outside?" Lin Qiao turned around and said, "No, I'm going to let these guys out for a bit." When Chiu Lily heard this, she immediately flipped over and jumped down from the top, landing nimbly and gracefully beside her. "I want to go out too." Lin Qiao nodded and said, "Sure, but it will be very chaotic outside." Chiu Lily looked at her excitedly and said with bright eyes, "It will be lively when it is chaotic." At this time, zombies came out from behind the walls on both sides of the small building. They walked towards Lin Qiao one by one and stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring at Lin Qiao. They didn't know why Lin Qiao called them over. The other level 5 zombie leaders also came out. They didn't mix into the group of level 4 zombies, but stood in the open space on the side. "I will take you out for a bit, but you can't kill people, and you can't eat people. Got it?" Lin Qiao looked at them and said. Roar dash. They couldn't kill or eat. Then was she going to let them out to scare people? The zombies were puzzled. Lin Qiao sensed their thoughts and laughed. Yes, I'm going to let you out to scare people. Of course, if there are people who are scared to death, I won't stop you if you want to eat them. But you can only eat the heart, not the brain. It's too disgusting. You can also keep the energy core, I won't confiscate it. But remember, you are not allowed to kill people. If I find out, I will cut off your heads. After she said that, most of the zombies raised their hands and then hugged their heads, afraid that Lin Qiao would cut them off. Lin Qiao stopped smiling and said to them sternly, "Don't have any other ideas. I know what you are thinking. I won't let you out if you have a guilty conscience. That, and that. You guys don't go out." She pointed at a few zombies who had ulterior motives and coldly said, "You guys, go back to where you came from." Roar dash, the zombies who were named by her were a little unhappy. Why could other zombies go out, but they couldn't? They had stayed here for so long, and there was no living person. The place was small, and they had to do strange things all day, so the zombies couldn't understand it at all. Now they suddenly had a chance to go out to play, but they were suddenly called out and not allowed to go out. These zombies were unhappy, and once they were unhappy, their ferocious nature was exposed. Roar dash, roar dash, roar dash. It was obvious that Lin Qiao had been too lax recently, so they dared to roar at her at this time. And with one roar, the others became bolder and followed suit. I think you guys, have I been too lax recently? Ah! Lin Qiao sneered and slightly stretched out a finger. A few strands of thin black fog suddenly jumped out and instantly flashed in front of the zombies who dared to roar at her. In the blink of an eye, it drilled into their foreheads. Chapter 493. The zombies that were thrown into the black fog by Lin Qiao all stiffened and then slowly fell down. The other zombies that were very close to these zombies all retreated as if they were avoiding the plague, keeping a distance from the fallen zombies. Seeing the fallen zombies quickly being swallowed by the black fog and disappearing, leaving a few zombie cores on the ground. Who else is not satisfied? I gave you a way to live, but you want to die. If anyone has the idea of going out to eat people again, I will make you become like this. Lin Qiao said coldly to the zombies. She didn't need disobedient zombies. If these zombies couldn't change their wild nature, then she would naturally get rid of them to prevent them from causing trouble in the future. After Lin Qiao cleanly cleaned up their own kind, the high-level zombies' fear of Lin Qiao rose again. Hearing her words at this time, they didn't quite understand, but they could roughly understand. So now they didn't dare to make a sound, afraid that they would be the next one to be cleaned up. After Lin Qiao confirmed their attitude again, she took out a long rope and threw it towards the zombies. Grab the rope. This rope was specially found by her to bring people in and out of the space. After she threw the rope down, the zombies immediately grabbed the rope with their hands. Lin Qiao grabbed the rope with one hand and pulled Qiu Lily with the other, then they went out with the zombies in a flash. After they disappeared into the space, a snake's head stretched out from the woods and curiously looked at the direction of the small building. Suddenly, it turned around and looked behind it. Then, as if it was being chased, it turned around and ran away. Ow ow! The zombie dog rushed out and glanced at the small building's location blankly. Then it went to play with the snake without a care. In the originally peaceful square in front of the school building, a group of more than 20 zombies suddenly appeared silently. Each of them was level 4 or even level 5. As soon as Lin Qiao and Qiu Lily came out, they immediately disappeared. Roar, she gave an order before leaving. At this time, after 2 or 3 seconds, the surrounding soldiers suddenly realized that it was a group of zombies that appeared out of nowhere. Their expressions changed, their eyes slowly widened, and they couldn't believe their eyes when they saw these high-level zombies that looked no lower than level 4. With their mouths wide open, they forgot to make a sound. The sudden appearance of zombies was already very surprising. After all, they were in the base. But now a group of zombies suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was a group. Not just one. Moreover, this group of zombies were not ordinary zombies. Almost all of them were level 4 or above mutant zombies. At this time, the soldiers who saw these zombies were all stunned, and all of them were dumbfounded. There's a zombie dash. Suddenly, someone came back to his senses and roared. High-level zombies are in the city. Everyone suddenly came back to their senses, and then there was a scream of horror. Toot-toot-toot, bang, 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 da-da-da, a series of gunshots rang out from the campus. Roar, the group of zombies scattered in all directions. Some of them jumped out of the school and rushed towards the nearby places where there were many people. Some zombies rushed towards the soldiers who were shooting at them, nimbly dodging the bullets and waving their fists towards the soldiers. After these soldiers were beaten to the ground, they were all stunned. Zombies were many times stronger than normal zombies. Moreover, who the hell had seen zombies attack people with their fists? Didn't they all use their claws? After the zombies beat the people to the ground, they turned around and attacked the next target. Duan, who was on the top of the building outside, stared at the direction of the city with binoculars. After seeing the gate being swallowed by the black fog, she opened her mouth in shock. Then, should we go over? Right now, there are alarms and gunshots everywhere. It seems that the inside is already in chaos. This is a good opportunity. The person beside Duan said. But how do we pass through the zombie horde below? Someone asked. I will go down and try. Duan suddenly said. She wanted to try to believe Lin Qiao's words. Chapter 494. What? You're crazy. The others looked at her with a surprised face. You guys stay here, I'll go down first. If I can get there safely, then you guys come down. After Duan made up her mind, she immediately made a prompt decision. At the same time, she passed the binoculars in her hands to the people around her. No. You're too dangerous. You can't go alone. If you want to go, then everyone should go together. Yes. Sister Wan, we're all men, how can we let a woman take the risk? You stay here, we'll go. Yes, if someone wants to go, it should be us. Don't go. The people around her fiercely protested to her. Originally, there were very few women in the apocalypse. They all had the obligation to protect women. How could they let Duan do such a dangerous thing alone? I want to go, don't stop me. However, Duan said unyieldingly. After saying that, she directly turned around and walked towards the stairs. The others looked at each other and finally sighed helplessly. They hurriedly followed him. Soon, they walked out of the real open space. Because the sentry post on the base's wall had been destroyed, they were not worried about being discovered after going out. But Duan was not stupid enough to directly walk to a conspicuous place. She still led the people to sneak in from the side. Until they were about 2 or 3 meters away from the zombies, they stopped, silently staring at the zombies for a while. Duan, who had always been cautious, quickly found something unusual. Look, these zombies don't seem to be able to see us. Duan suddenly said in surprise. Because at this distance, the zombies could not see them, but could smell their scent. But they were hiding less than 3 meters away from the zombies, and the zombies did not move. After hearing Duan's words, the others were also surprised to find that it seemed to be true. Really? Can't they smell our scent? The man who had already raised his gun and prepared to shoot said with a blank face. Could it be that what that woman said is true? Duan Wan's eyes flashed, and said with some expectation. Try it and you'll know. Someone behind said. After Duan Wan nodded, she began to carefully move towards the zombies. They were at the edge of the gate of the base, not facing it directly. Because there used to be a lot of buildings here, when the vacuum zone was cleared, these buildings collapsed. However, there were still a lot of big stones, big wall blocks, and ruins like the foot of the building. When observing this side from the ground, there were still many obstacles. Only by standing on top of the city wall and looking down from above would they be able to see the situation clearly. That was why Lin Qiao helped them knock down the sentries on the wall and opened the door for them. Don't shoot. Move carefully. Duan Wan and the others bore the pressure in their hearts and moved closer and closer. 5 meters, 2 meters, 1. 5 meters, they were so close, but these zombies acted as if they didn't exist. He couldn't believe it. Duan Wan and the others slightly opened their eyes and moved towards the weakest part of the zombie horde with a bewildered expression. But soon, a scene that surprised them appeared. When they were about a meter away from the zombies suddenly moved. Duan Wan and the others were startled. Just as they were about to shoot, they suddenly stopped moving. Because these zombies moved, but they didn't rush towards them. Instead, they began to retreat. They are retreating again. A man beside Duan Wan looked like he saw a ghost and said. Duan Wan also noticed it at this time. She silently took 2 steps forward. Sure enough, the zombies in front of them retreated again. They are actually retreating. At this time, the people behind were somewhat unable to understand what was going on. Hurry up, don't talk nonsense. After Duan Wan tried to take 2 more steps, she found that the zombies were still retreating. She immediately turned around and said to the people behind her who didn't move. So this group of people slowly passed through the zombie horde, because as soon as they approached, the zombie horde automatically gave way to them. Everyone was dumbfounded as they passed through the zombie horde. They even felt like they were dreaming. In fact, they didn't know that after Lin Qiao walked around them, he had already stained their bodies with his scent. So these zombies actually didn't smell their original scent, but Lin Qiao's. But because Lin Qiao's scent was very light and not strong, these zombies only reacted when Duan Wan was less than a meter away from them. However, Duan Wan and the others were stained with Lin Qiao's scent, so it wouldn't stay for too long. So after Duan Wan made a prompt decision, she seized this opportunity. If she hesitated and continued to think about this problem, then after Lin Qiao's scent disappeared, it might not be so easy for them to pass through the zombie horde. After passing through the zombie horde, Duan Wan and the others ran towards the direction of the gate with a dreamy feeling. If the soldiers at the gate hadn't shot at them to wake them up, they might have entered in a daze. Be careful. Duan Wan shouted, pulling everyone's consciousness back to reality. But when they entered the gate of the base, they saw a large number of soldiers lying on the ground. These people were all injured, but they wouldn't die for a while. The defense line of the wall had been completely broken. After seeing Duan Wan and the others come in, Lin Qiao appeared from the side. She said to Duan Wan and the others, "Don't look anymore, go and save those people hanging on the wall first." Duan Wan and the others turned around and saw that Lin Qiao had appeared in the guardhouse. Beside her was a teenage girl with 2 ponytails. At this time, the girl in the white dress had her back to them. Maybe because of Lin Qiao's words, she turned around to look. As a result, when Duan Wan and the others saw her face, they were so scared that they took a step back and instinctively pointed their guns at Qiu Lily. Wait, if I were you, I definitely wouldn't point a gun at her. Lin Qiao quickly stopped them. Don't forget how you came in. Although Chio Lily was a little unhappy that they dared to point a gun at her, she just snorted in disdain. Then she turned around and jumped to the side. If she didn't know that it was Lin Qiao who let them in, she would have used a wind blade to cut these idiots who dared to threaten her with a gun. As a result, when she spoke, Duan Wan and the others were dumbfounded again. Because they heard the zombie speak. That's right, this girl with black eyes and red pupils was a zombie. And a very high-level zombie. Chapter 495. They didn't see it wrong, this girl was indeed a zombie. Her eyes couldn't lie to anyone. Come back to your senses, let's go save them. Lin Qiao said. Duan Wan, who was also in the special forces, had a better psychological quality and quickly reacted. She knew that the most important thing now wasn't to observe the zombies, but to save people. Let's go to the wall. Duan Wan shouted to the others, turned around and ran towards the ladder that was used to go to the top of the wall. Her words had the effect of an order, the others suppressed the shock in their hearts and went to act first. Lin Qiao didn't go anywhere, she just stood there and looked at the soldiers on the ground who were injured by Chio Lily's wind ability. After she threw Yang Jianhua's head out, she put her hands behind her back and said, I know that some of you are soldiers who were threatened to stay here, I'll give you a chance now. Yang Jianhua is dead, Huo Wu is also dead, no one is guarding your loved ones now. Now, do you want to kill the soldiers left behind by the Earth Dragon and the traitors who willingly followed Yang Jianhua, or do you want to wait for the opportunity to join the Earth Dragon base? I'll give you a choice, the former, live. The latter, die. She was like an instructor in the army, glancing back and forth as she spoke, while slowly walking between them. After she finished speaking, she suddenly didn't look at the soldier next to her who was about to sneak attack her with a gun. Bang dash, with a gunshot, Lin Qiao had already caught the bullet. She looked back and casually flicked the bullet at the soldier. With a puff dash sound, the bullet hit the middle of the soldier's forehead. She turned her face and didn't see the soldier's eyes widen as he fell with a small hole in his forehead. Lin Qiao continued, now, your choice begins. But at this time, these soldiers looked at Yang Jianhua's head blankly and didn't know how to react. Lin Qiao's words made them stunned for a while before they suddenly understood what she meant. You mean, the hostages are safe now? Finally, someone reacted and asked her loudly. Lin Qiao pointed to Yang Jianhua's head, nodded and said, now there's no one guarding, the people are still locked up. Whether you want to save them or not depends on you now. After she finished speaking, someone immediately took action. A man in a camouflage uniform suddenly grabbed a gun and quickly climbed up. He raised his gun and fired at some of the soldiers. Bang, 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 because his movements were too sudden and fast, his marksmanship was also very accurate. Before the others could react, he had already killed several of the Earth Dragon soldiers. I've tolerated you for a long time. Now, even Yang Jianhua is dead, and the leader of your base is not here. I finally have the chance to kill you bastards. The man cursed angrily. After that, he took a gun and shot at the soldiers of the Earth Dragon base. His shout was like a fuse, igniting the hatred and grievances that the others had accumulated in their hearts during this period of time. Yes. Kill these bastards. The others immediately followed suit. It was obvious that they had not been treated well in the past few months after their families or friends had been arrested and forced to stay. Someone still looked at Lin Qiao with some concern. Are the hostages really okay? You wouldn't lie to us, would you? You can go and see for yourselves. Lin Qiao spread his hands and said indifferently. She lied to you. The hostages are still in our hands. You don't want them to live. At this time, someone from the Earth Dragon base suddenly roared. Let me tell you, now that Yang Jianhua is dead, it won't be long before your Earth Dragon base is finished. Believe me. Lin Qiao turned her head and stared at that person. When they caused her mother, Lin Feng, and the others to flee to Huadong region, she had already planned to clear up the matter and stabilize the work of the new base. Then, she would get rid of these people one by one. Yang Jianhua, Long Yubai, the Earth Dragon base, and even those from other bases who had helped Long Yubai, Lin Qiao would slowly find them to settle accounts. Believe her. We all come out. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded from the side. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman in ragged clothes leaning on the wall next to them looking in this direction. Xiao Lan. Suddenly, someone recognized this woman and cried out in surprise. The man immediately struggled to get up from the ground. Ignoring his own injury, he covered the bloody wound on his arm and rushed towards the woman. Lin Qiao also looked at the woman. Suddenly, she turned her face and looked at the other side. At the same time, her hand quickly took out a military knife from her waist and instantly shot it out. Puff! The blade of the knife pierced into the man's throat. The gun in the man's hand fell to the ground. He reached out to cover his throat and stared. The woman had escaped from the school. She probably knew that her relatives were here, so she sneaked over. You guys are quite fast. Lin Qiao looked at the woman and said. After seeing this woman, the others immediately felt like they had been injected with a shot of adrenaline. Suddenly, they all believed Lin Qiao's words. They all got up, picked up their weapons and attacked the soldiers of the Earth Dragon base around them, or the people from the former Hell King's base who had already rebelled. Soon, another battle immediately broke out. Lin Qiao turned around to avoid their attacks, then her figure flashed and disappeared. She didn't know which soldiers belonged to the former Hell King's base and which ones belonged to the Earth Dragon base, so she used this method to make the former Hell King's base rebel. In fact, there weren't many people left in the Earth Dragon base. Long Yubai had taken away most of them, and most of the others had also taken the loot from the Hell King's base and returned to the Earth Dragon base. Only Huo Wu and 1,000 soldiers stayed here. Long Yubai had asked him to help Yang Jianhua deal with things. In fact, he had secretly asked him to keep an eye on Yang Jianhua. However, he didn't expect that not long after Long Yubai left, Yang Jianhua would break through and trample on Huo Wu's status. However, now that Yang Jianhua was dead and Huo Wu didn't appear, the oppressed soldiers of the Hell King's base were no longer afraid after seeing the hostages appear here. Lin Qiao sensed the position of the high-level zombies released from her space and found that they were scattered. Fortunately, there was no smell of blood coming from anyone's direction. It seems like they were all obedient. She turned around and headed towards Lu Yu's direction. She didn't know how many bombs the other side had defused, so she went to see the situation first. At this time, the central square of the inner district was also in chaos because of the zombies. Yes, that's right, the zombies that Lin Qiao released to cause trouble had already run over there. Chapter 496. A level 5 zombie jumped onto a truck parked in the square. The surrounding firepower immediately shot towards it, but before the bullets could reach it, it turned around and ran away. Over there. It ran that way. Someone shouted. However, they didn't dare to chase after it because it was a level 5 zombie leader. Ordinary soldiers like them could only hide. Only a few level 3 and 4 paranormals didn't panic, but they also found a place to hide. Why did he run away? However, these paranormals were also confused at this time because they thought that the zombie leader would appear here and start a massacre. Even if it didn't, it would definitely attack 1 or 2 people, then dig out their hearts and dig out their brains to eat. In the end, the zombie leader just ran here to show off and then disappeared. I don't see Deputy Leader Yang and Senior Captain Hui anywhere. I can't find them. What should we do now? At this time, some people who ran upstairs to find Yang Jianhua and Huo Wu hurriedly came down, looking very anxious as they shouted to the others. Impossible, they have been up there all the time, how can they not be here? Seeing that the zombie leader had left, the two captains in charge of the loading immediately ran out. They really aren't here. I've searched everywhere upstairs, said one of the subordinates downstairs. Captain. Not good. The school, they all ran away. At this time, someone shouted in panic. What? Where are the people over there? The two captains looked at him in surprise. I heard that they were driven away by the zombies. The zombies injured a lot of people and then escaped. Those hostages took the opportunity to break through the door. The injured guards weren't able to stop them. The newcomer was also at a loss as he spoke in shock. After he revealed that the hostages had escaped, the expressions of the surrounding people immediately changed. They suddenly pointed the guns in their hands at the Earth Dragon soldiers and opened fire. Brothers, the hostages have all escaped. Quickly go and save them. These were the original soldiers of the Hell King's base. If it wasn't for the hostages, they would have already left here. Who would still work for these outsiders and that traitor Yang Jianhua? Therefore, everyone immediately began to change sides. The result was, of course, another chaotic gunfight ensued. Because of Lin Qiao's zombies causing trouble, the entire base quickly fell into this kind of situation. On the other side, Lu Yu, who was leading his team to dismantle the bombs, was shocked by the gunshots from all over the base. What's wrong? The team members looked in the direction of the gunshot. I don't know. But this should only be the beginning. Lu Yu sighed, as if he had guessed something, and muttered to himself. Ah. Captain. What did you say? The team member looked at him suspiciously. Oh. It's nothing. Hurry up and dismantle the bomb, Lu Yu said. But aren't these the last few people in the team searching? Soon. That's right, Captain. Should we go to the basement? We haven't had enough fun with those women. It's not like we can hand them over to the Earth Dragon base. In the end, we have to satisfy our craving before we leave. Suddenly, another team member curiously asked, and suddenly smiled obscenely. Yeah, anyway, there's still some time before we set off. Let's hurry up. Another team member's eyes lit up, and he also said excitedly. I guess we can't leave either. Lu Yu heard his words and looked back at the direction of the gunshot from another position. Ah. We're not leaving. As soon as he said this, the other people's movements immediately stopped. Well, you really can't leave. You dare to hide people in the basement? But you added their names to the bait. You want to take them for yourself. Lin Qiao stood behind them and said faintly. Lu Yu suddenly turned his head and looked at Lin Qiao with a horrified expression. No. I just want to save them. When Lu Yu saw Lin Qiao, his legs went soft. Who are you? His team member was not as timid as him. Instead, he pointed his gun at her and asked. Don't lie to me. I heard everything you said just now, and I can also know what you're thinking. Lin Qiao walked over, and there was a burst of coldness under the sunglasses. Lu Yu shook his head and said in panic, No, I didn't lie to you. I really didn't. Captain. What's wrong with you? The team member next to Lu Yu looked at him strangely. Lin Qiao looked at him. You helped Yang Jianhua kill so many people. Do you think you can make up for your crime by defusing a bomb? Do you know? I know what's going on in your head right now. A few of the women you locked in the basement have been played to death by you scum, am I right? When Lu Yu heard this, he felt terrible. He originally thought he could live longer, but he didn't expect to expose his weakness so quickly. Those women were indeed taken advantage of by him. He hid them in the basement and played with them. Anyway, the men of those women were all dead. Even if they were sent to Earth Dragon, they would only be used as prostitutes. Compared to those outsiders, they might as well take advantage of their own people. Therefore, they hid the women in a secret basement and played with them every night without giving them food or drink. In the end, they played with them to death and secretly carried the bodies out to throw them away. Originally, after they left today, they planned to have one last round of crazy fun and then leave, leaving their bodies to rot in the basement. But now, not to mention whether he could leave or not, he didn't even know if he could survive. If he had known, he would have run away. Lin Qiao wasn't far from them. At this time, she slowly walked over. As she got closer, Lu Yu's thoughts became clearer. Run away. Then you will only die a little earlier. Lin Qiao said coldly. Lu Yu widened his eyes and looked at her in horror because her words seemed to be answering his thoughts at the moment. Before he could react, his team member had already confirmed Lin Qiao's identity and started shooting at her. Dash, the machine gun sprayed, but none of the bullets hit Lin Qiao. Because she suddenly disappeared into thin air. How? How did she disappear? Lu Yu's team members widened their eyes and looked at the place where Lin Qiao disappeared. Because I'm here. Lin Qiao's voice came from behind them. They turned around and saw a few bullets. Bang, 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 bang dash. Lin Qiao had 2 pistols in her hands and accurately killed all of Lu Yu's team members. Since you guys helped to defuse the bomb, you should thank me for not feeding you to the zombies. Lin Qiao shot the last bullet into Lu Yu's forehead. Chapter 497. Lin Qiao put the gun back into the space and walked over to dig out Lu Yu's energy core from his brain. In fact, she didn't intend to let this scum live, because he was as perverted as Yang Jianhua, and he was also Yang Jianhua's loyal subordinate. When Lin Qiao approached him, she could completely feel how he was fantasizing about her. Lu Yu's thoughts were very dark and perverted, but he was timid, bullied the weak and feared the strong, and had the habit of abusing women. So Lin Qiao used his timid personality to make him defuse the bomb. In the end, the other party really defused the bomb, and naively thought that she would let him go. Lin Qiao put the bomb box into the space, then turned around and left. After Duanwan rescued all the people hanging outside the wall as bait, she found that most of them were still alive, and the rest were dead. But the dead ones didn't die for long, because Yang Jianhua ordered to pay attention to the vitality of these bait. If they could only hang for 2 or 3 hours, they were to directly cut the rope. Anyway, the attraction of the dead people would slowly disappear, and if they were useless, of course they would just be thrown away. Duanwan. Suddenly there was a surprised shout from the ladder by the wall. Duanwan turned around and found that it was the person who had been secretly letting them into the base through the back door. This man was the one that the female hostage ran over to find him. His name was Ding Datong. He was originally a member of Hell King's personal guard, but because his sister was being controlled, he had no choice but to stay here. The one who ran over to find him was his sister, Ding Rulan. Duanwan immediately walked over to him, looked at the woman behind him and asked, Ding Datong, this is your sister, right? Did they escape? Ding Datong looked back at his sister, then happily nodded to Duanwan. He suddenly asked curiously, by the way, are you with that strange woman? The one with the sunglasses. If it weren't for that woman and a very high-level zombie girl, the Earth Dragon base and Yang Jianhua's people wouldn't have been attacked. And he also saw Duan talking to the other party when they came in. Duan nodded, yes, it's a temporary relationship. She said she would help us kill Yang Jianhua, and then she asked us to take her to the place where the leader died. Oh, I see. Ding Datong nodded in understanding and suddenly asked, who is she? Moreover, the female zombie beside her seemed to be a level 6 king. Why would she bring a female zombie king with her? Duan shook her head and said, I don't know. We didn't believe her when she said she could kill Yang Jianhua at first. But you saw the head just now, so we have no choice but to believe it. When do you plan to take her to that place? What are your plans for the future? Ding Datong asked. Duan looked at him, sighed, and said, I'll see what she wants. If she's not in a hurry, I want to settle the situation here first before taking her there. Oh, by the way, Datong, quickly gather everyone and do an inventory. Okay. After listening to her words, Ding Datong immediately nodded. However, he looked around her and asked, by the way, didn't Hongxing come with you? Hongxing and the others are still outside. We still need to send someone to bring them back. Duan said. Ding Datong nodded in understanding. Because of the zombies' disturbance, Yang Jianhua and Huo Wu's army were quickly captured by the soldiers of the Hades King's base. The hostages were also rescued, and all the supplies that Yang Jianhua had prepared to take away were taken back. After controlling the traders and the soldiers of the Earth Dragon base, Duan took them to the square in the inner area. However, they suddenly found that the zombies that were running around the base had disappeared. That's not right, where are those zombies? Someone asked. The others were slow to realize that the zombies had mysteriously disappeared again, just like when they came. Duan and the others stood at the entrance of the building in front of the square. She asked Ding Datong's sister, Ding Rulan, by the way, how did you escape? Ding Rulan was wearing a man's shirt. She looked at Duan with a strange expression and replied, suddenly, a group of zombies came out of nowhere and knocked out the guards at the school. I had no choice but to take the opportunity to break the door and escape. Duan was puzzled and said, I heard you talking about zombies. Did these zombies come from the school where you were locked up? Ding Rulan looked around in the distance and replied with uncertainty, maybe. Duan suddenly thought of something. She turned her head and looked left and right, up and down, as if she was looking for something. What's wrong? The Ding siblings and the others looked at her in confusion. I'm looking for, what's that person's name? Duan originally wanted to find the woman who helped her kill Yang Jianhua, but she suddenly didn't know how to address her. She changed the way she said, oh, where did the beauty who killed Yang Jianhua go? The one with glasses? Ding Datong asked. Yes. Duan nodded. Ding Datong subconsciously looked around, but there was no trace of that person. Just now, everyone was busy fighting and saving people. Now, they were busy cleaning up the remaining supplies, so they didn't notice. Oh, are you looking for me? Lin Qiao appeared from behind them and leaned against the door frame. Everyone immediately turned to look at her. Duan looked at her blankly. You haven't been here all this time, right? Oh, no. I just got here. I just went to deal with a few scumbags. The one with Yang Jianhua, a level 5 fire ability user. Lin Qiao thought for a moment and said. Lu Yu. Duan immediately blurted out, and then her eyes flashed with a hint of fierceness. He is indeed a scumbag, a pervert who likes to abuse women. The same as Yang Jianhua. Oh, yes, that's him. But he was killed by me just now. I originally wanted you to send someone to a basement to save a few girls. He hid them there. Lin Qiao nodded and then gave her an address. I'll go. Ding Datong immediately said. Okay, Datong, take a few people there to save them. Duan nodded and agreed to let him go. After watching Ding Datong leave, Duan continued to look at Lin Xiao. Those zombies. She didn't directly ask if she let those zombies in, but thinking of the twin-tailed female zombie, Duan had already labeled Lin Xiao as having a special relationship with zombies. Lin Xiao sensed her thoughts and replied with a smile, "Oh, you're concerned about this now. I think you should be concerned about how to let the people outside the base in or how to let the people here out. After all, there are still a lot of zombies outside the gate." Chapter 498. Hearing Lin Xiao's reminder, Duan remembered that she hadn't sent anyone out to pick up Li Hongxing and the others. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Lin Xiao and asked, "You have a way, right? Because you can let us in." Lin Xiao nodded and said, "Who do you want to send out?" "Tell him to come over." Duan immediately asked the men who came in with her from outside the base to come over and stand in front of Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao stood up and walked over. After standing in front of them, she suddenly took out a few green things and gave one to each of them. "Take this, the effect will be better than when you came in. But when you come in, remember to surround the people outside," she said to them. Everyone looked at the things that Lin Xiao gave them with a strange expression. The men also looked at the grass frogs that Lin Xiao gave them with a blank expression. And, that's right, it was a frog made of grass leaves. Lin Xiao looked at their expressions in amusement. Her heart was already very happy. She originally wanted to use her blood to smear it on them, but after thinking about it, she decided not to do it in such a strange way, because it might arouse the suspicion of some extreme people. So after thinking about it, she simply picked some grass leaves from her space and weaved them into a few frogs that were easy to weave. Then she hid a drop of her blood in the frogs' stomachs. She tried it, and her blood directly made Chiu Lily stay away from her. Needless to say, the other low-level zombies all ran away in an instant and disappeared without a trace. Lin Xiao knew that her blood not only contained the pressure of a high-level zombie king, but also the condensed energy in the lake. This kind of energy would make the zombies excited and happy, but when the amount reached a certain level, it would cause the zombies to instinctively feel fear. Just like the lake in her space, there was too much energy, so the more than 20 high-level zombies and the mutated giant snake didn't dare to come close. Only the zombie dog with the potential of a husky would come close, but it also didn't dare to come too close. The men held the frogs that Lin Xiao gave them with a blank expression, and looked back at Duan with a bewildered expression. If they hadn't really come in from outside, they might not have accepted this kind of thing. It was simply a joke. Duan walked over and took a look at the frog in one of their hands. Then, she was stunned for a moment and her eyes flashed. But soon, she naturally put it to her nose and sniffed it, and used her special ability to sense it. There is a very strange energy in it. "I think you can give it a try," she said after returning the frog to the man. "What, you don't believe me? Then you'll have to find a way out yourself. But don't blame me for not reminding you. The effect you had when you came in from outside the base has already disappeared. That won't last long. That's why I'm giving this to you now. You should be glad that I didn't weave a straw doll for you," Lin Xiao said. "May I ask, where did you learn this weaving method?" Duan suddenly looked at Lin Xiao and asked. Lin Xiao smiled calmly and said, "What? Can't you tell? This is probably something that your leader or her family would make up." Although she said this sentence lightly, there was a lot of information in her words. After a slight pause, Duan suddenly stared at her closely. "Do you know our leader?" Lin Xiao spread her hands and said, "Actually, let me make it clear to you now. I came from Huadong, and I also know Lin Feng's family. Oh, and Yuan Tianqing, you should know him too. Lin Qiao knew what Duan Wan wanted to ask because everyone in her special forces knew that she could weave these little things and were very familiar with her weaving method. Therefore, Duan Wan was very surprised when she saw the frog. She had a guess, but she wasn't sure which direction it was. Chapter 499. Push them out to feed the zombies. Weren't they the ones who attracted the zombies outside the gate? Let them feed the zombies themselves. Someone said angrily. Yes. These scumbags killed so many people from our base, let them be bitten by the zombies. That's right. These bastards. I want them to die a horrible death. At the mention of this matter, hatred slowly appeared in the surrounding crowd, and soon it began to spread. The former soldiers of Hell King's base stared at these captives with bloodshot eyes. In fact, after the previous battle, there were less than 3,000 surviving enemies, especially in the school. Basically all of them had been annihilated. Because they were beaten by the zombies until they lost their fighting strength, the soldiers of Hell King's base who went to rescue them and the hostages who were released took out their guns in anger and killed them all. Even teenagers know how to stab them in the chest, or even slit their throats. Moreover, after being assigned to the gate, Chiu Lily played with them while helping them. She didn't kill them, she just made them lose their fighting strength and let others kill them. Lin Qiao stood at the back and didn't say anything. She realized that Duan Wan's side had the highest level of ability, and there were very few other ability users. Strength was respected, so now they basically treated Duan Wan as their leader. In the end, Duan Wan personally led the people to tie up these captives and drag them out of the inner area, rushing towards the gate of the base in the outer area. Knowing that they were going to be sent to the zombies, the Earth Dragon soldiers and young Jianhua subordinates were all scared and wanted to escape, but they were directly shot to death. In the end, those who were still alive were tied up and thrown into the truck, and transported to the empty space outside the gate. Although they were out of the gate, looking at the zombies that were still some distance away from the gate, even Duan Wan's people felt a little scared. But after seeing that the zombies didn't rush over, they still bravely pushed all the enemies off the truck before jumping back into the base. But when they returned to the base, they found that the zombies were still standing there motionless. This was embarrassing. Huh? They aren't coming over. Yeah, what's going on? They don't want to eat. Duan Wan stood on the wall, and after seeing the situation, she couldn't help but look at Lin Qiao. There was no other way. She seemed to have cooperated with zombies before, and there was a way for them to pass through the zombie horde. Miss Liu, what should we do now? Lin Qiao looked at her and smiled. It's very simple. She turned her head and shouted in a certain direction, Lily, come here. Let them eat. Duan Wan and the others around her also looked in that direction and saw a white figure coming out of it. Chiu Lily looked at Lin Qiao angrily. She knew that Lin Qiao couldn't reveal her identity, but she wasn't the breeder of these zombies, right? Although Chiu Lily was a little dissatisfied with Lin Qiao's words, she still controlled her wind element to fly into the sky and shouted at the zombies below. Oh, time to eat, time to eat. After she finished shouting, the zombies below all moved in an instant, swarming towards the enemy and rebel soldiers who were left outside. Roar, roar, roar. The people on the wall looked indifferently at the thousands of captives in the vacuum zone being drowned by the tens of thousands of zombies. Their screams were mixed with the roars of the zombies. After settling the hostages and the injured, Duan Wan asked people to cook a meal with the food they had seized, so that everyone could finally eat their fill after a few months. That night, Duan Wan discussed the next plan with everyone. I'm going to lead a team to Hangzhou to find the deputy leader and the team leader. They are building a new base, it's a new home. I'll give you 1 day to think about it. Do you want to follow me to Hangzhou City, or do you want to stay here? The choice is voluntary. Come and sign up tomorrow. I will leave for a day and come back at night to count the number of people. Duanwan stood on the newly built platform in the square and said to everyone. Below the square, everyone casually sat on the ground. After hearing Duanwan's words, they began to discuss. On the platform, besides Duanwan, Li Hongxing, Ding Datong and a few other metahumans were looking at everyone. She let everyone choose for themselves whether to leave with her to the new base or stay here. After all, although the majority of the area was destroyed, there were still some places in the inner district that could be lived in, and a portion of the resources were still preserved. If they did not want to make the long journey through the zombie horde to Hangzhou City, they could still continue living here. Since there's news about the deputy leader, we will naturally go and find him. Moreover, why don't we go to the new base? We can also help build it together. That's right. This place has already been destroyed to this extent, it's better to build a new base than to rebuild it. I'm willing to go to Hangzhou City. Us too. There were people in the crowd who were willing to go to the new base, but there were also people who were unwilling. But there are so many of us going to Hangzhou City, isn't it too far? We don't have many weapons and ammunition left, the road is full of zombies, the weak people might not be able to make it to the other side. That's right, there's nothing wrong with staying here. Although many houses have been destroyed, the inner district can still be lived in. Why must we go to such a far place? There are so many dangers on the road, who knows how many people will die. Duanwan listened to the various voices below for a while, then said, Didn't I say that I'll give you one day to consider? I'll go back to think about it at night, we'll leave the day after tomorrow. Don't worry, I won't take too many things, I'll only take a small part of the supplies to support us to Hangzhou City. Lin Qiao looked at them from the side, feeling the psychological activities of the people below. Nowadays people were very selfish, those who wanted to leave wished to go, the fewer the better, especially those ordinary people who were old, weak, sick and disabled, they didn't want to go to the end. In this way, they wouldn't have to spend so much energy to escort them all the way. And those who didn't want to leave, because they were too afraid of the zombies in the base, they didn't dare to take the risk to leave. But on the other hand, they wanted Duanwan and the others to stay, so that there would be people to protect them here. In fact, she felt that those who were willing to take the risk to leave had all benefited. Because with her, there was basically no danger of being attacked by zombies along the way. And those who stayed, of course, Lin Qiao wouldn't tell them, of course, that they would miss a big opportunity. After saying this, Duanwan didn't say anything more, and jumped down from the high platform with the others. She turned to Lin Qiao and said with a smile, Now it's good, tomorrow we also have a car to take you to that place. Lin Qiao said, Why do you care so much about this? I also have a car. Didn't that place become a zombie city? Then why did Lin Feng and Yuan Tianqing choose that place? She asked curiously, If I'm not wrong, Hangzhou City should be a zombie city, right? Why did the deputy leader and the rest build their base there? It's because it's a zombie city. Think about it, it's a zombie city. There are a lot of zombies, and there are many high-level zombies. Normal zombie hunting teams don't dare to go in. Even if a larger team goes in, they won't be able to enter the central area. So there must be a lot of food and supplies there. Lin Qiao looked ahead and replied. That's right, it's the opposite. So, the deputy leader and the rest have collected a lot of supplies and food? Duanwan nodded. She suddenly thought of something. Did you also help in the base? Because she thought of the zombie city, there were a lot of zombies there. And it just so happened that this Miss Lu seemed to have a way to deal with zombies. Then Yuan Tianqing and the rest built a base there. Didn't that mean that this Miss Lu should also be contributing? Oh, I did help a little. Lin Qiao nodded. But he didn't say much. Thank you. Duan smiled knowingly. Thank you again. Yuan Tianqing and the rest should be thanking me. Why are you thanking me on their behalf? Lin Qiao glanced at her. The conversation between the two of them made the few men behind them quiet down. They only knew that Yuan Tianqing and the rest were still alive and building a base in Hangzhou City. They originally thought it would be in a place where there weren't many zombies around the city. But now they heard that it was in the center of the city, and there were a lot of zombies. They suddenly felt that their deputy leader must be crazy to choose the location of the new base there. But after seeing the zombies run away when they saw them, they suddenly felt that it was normal. Along the way, they finally experienced the feeling of zombies making way for them. Because along the way, the zombies turned around and ran away when they saw their car. After leaving the county city, there were no zombies on the highway. There were only abandoned cars on the road. In such a situation, they had to move the cars on the road and continue moving forward. What was supposed to be a 2-hour drive ended up taking them more than 3 hours to reach the seaside. When they were about to reach the seaside, a strange feeling rose in Lin Qiao's heart. The further they went, the stronger the feeling became. She had a feeling that she had dropped something here. When she saw a black fog in the distance, she felt as if something was about to jump out of her heart, beckoning her to move forward. Duan stopped the car and said to her, "You see, there is a cliff 1 or 2 kilometers ahead. The environment there. Those flames were left behind after our leader self-destructed. Although she's gone, the effect of the flames hasn't disappeared. It's just reduced by 90%. But even so, it's not convenient for us to go there now, so we can only send you here." She was right. Even if the effect of the flames had been reduced by 90%, with her current level 5 strength, it was still very dangerous. Chapter 501. Lin Qiao's eyes were fixed in that direction. She turned around and smiled at Duan. "It's okay. It's here. I can go there alone." She opened the car door and prepared to get out. Duan pulled her back worriedly. "Are you really going? It's very dangerous there. Our leader's fire ability isn't ordinary fire. Even if the effect of the ability has been reduced by 90%, it's still very dangerous. It can poison people and corrode their whole body." Lin Qiao said to her, "It's okay. I have a way to deal with it. You guys go back first." Duan looked at her and suddenly said, "No, we'll wait for you. If you don't show up at night, we'll have to leave." Lin Qiao nodded. "Okay. Then I'll go first." She got out of the car and waved to the people in the car. Then she turned around and walked in the direction of the rising black fog. Duan and the others looked at her back as she walked away. They had mixed feelings. Because it was very dangerous there now. Many people didn't come back. Now that Miss Lu had just helped them, she wanted to go into this dangerous place. Duan and the others felt that it wasn't good to watch her go in like this. But she insisted on going in, and they couldn't stop her. Just when Lin Qiao was far away, a figure suddenly appeared beside her. She jumped out of the car in the direction of Duan and the others' car. Then with a bang, she jumped onto the roof of their car. The people in the car were so scared that they immediately jumped out of the car and pointed their guns at the person on the roof. Before Duan could see who it was, the person spoke first. Duan was stunned. Looking at the person on the roof, she shouted in surprise, "Qian Xiaoai." The name sounded like a girl's name, but in fact, the person standing on the roof of the car was a tall and strong man. Qian Xiaoai also looked at Duan in surprise, but when he heard her call his name, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed. You should call me Little A. Don't call me that name. He jumped off the roof. Seeing that this person knew Duan, the others slowly put down their guns. Qian Xiao Ai was 1.8 meters tall and had a sturdy body. He had a delicate face, but he was bald, which completely ruined his delicate temperament. Duan came back to her senses and asked in confusion, Little A, didn't you leave with the leader and the others? Why would it appear here? Qian Xiaoai scratched her head and said, Captain asked me to observe the place where the leader disappeared, but that place has become like this, so I can only wander around. It turned out that Lin Feng had asked him to come here because Qian Xiao Ai was originally Lin Feng's subordinate. Duan was still puzzled. She asked him, Captain sent you here. How long have you been here? Qian Xiao Ai looked in the direction where the black fog was rising. His eyes were a little gloomy. He replied, It's been more than 3 months. 3 months? Wasn't that when the base had just been breached? Why did you stay here for so long? Duan asked in surprise when she heard the time. Qian Xiao Ai turned her head and leaned against the car. She sighed and said, Captain said that I want to see the leader, dead or alive. But I can't get close to that place. I don't know if the leader is really gone, or maybe she didn't self-destruct. Maybe she fell into an unconscious state of self-protection. Duan looked at him and couldn't help but say, This is just your guess. Is that why you have been waiting here? How long are you going to stay here? Qian Xiao Ai looked at her, smiled, and said, Isn't it a bit self-deceiving? I think so too. I was already ready to leave, but I didn't expect you to suddenly come again at this time. I'm so happy to meet an acquaintance. Duan nodded. It's quite a coincidence. But you are going to find the leader and the others. Do you know where they are? Qian Xiao Ai immediately became spirited and asked, Yes, I was going to ask you this question. Do you know? Duan pointed in the direction where Lin Qiao had just left and said, She knows. I only heard that they are in Hangzhou. I don't know where exactly. Qian Xiao Ai looked in that direction strangely and asked, Oh, by the way, who is that woman? She came from Hangzhou, and she also knows the deputy leader and the others. She was the one who brought the news about the deputy leader. Although we haven't verified it, we don't have time to verify it now. We can only believe her for the time being, Duan said. You didn't verify it. But it makes sense. The deputy leader and the others were originally going in the direction of Hai City, so they should pass by Hangzhou City. But you actually believe her so much? Qian Xiao Ai asked. What can we do if we don't believe her? We have no other way to get news about the deputy leader, and this Miss Lu also helped us kill Yang Jianhua and Huo Wu yesterday, Duan said as she spread her hands. It was probably because of this that she chose to believe in her. What? She killed that traitor. Qian Xiao Ai's eyes widened in shock. Duan nodded. Yes, she not only killed Yang Jianhua and Huo Wu, but also took back our base. However, the current base was already a dilapidated and empty city. The resources have long been transported away by Long Yubai. After saying that, she sighed. It's good that he's dead. It's good that he's dead. That scum. If he hadn't drugged the leader, how could the leader have been forced to come here in order to lure those people away, and even had to self-destruct in the end? Qian Xiao Ai first muttered, It's good that he's dead, but in the next second, her expression suddenly changed and she scolded angrily. That's right. Not only does he deserve to die, but that Long Yubai also deserves to die. Everyone in their base deserves to die. Duan's expression also turned cold as she gritted her teeth. And the subject of their discussion, Lin Qiao, was already running towards the direction of the black smoke impatiently. Mama, perhaps she sensed her inexplicable excitement, or sensed the different atmosphere around her. Little Man suddenly woke up again. Lin Qiao paused for a moment before slowing down. What's wrong? Are you awake? She asked. Mama, your emotions are fluctuating greatly. And there's a familiar smell here. Mama, you found the source of the fire. Little Man, who had woken up, sensed Lin Qiao's surroundings, and suddenly said in surprise towards the direction of the rising black smoke. Yes, I found it. It's here, Little Man. Tell me, if I collect all these fires, will I remember the past? Lin Qiao said as she saw the black fire burning on the ground. It was exactly the same as in her previous dream. The aura of the fire made Lin Qiao feel that it originally belonged to her. Moreover, the energy in the fire was actually the same as the energy in her ability, the black smoke. It should be said that they were from the same source. Chapter 502. Hearing Lin Qiao's question, Little Man said with uncertainty, Little Man doesn't know either. Mommy will have to try to find out. But this place isn't dangerous for Mommy, Lin Qiao nodded as she walked forward. Not to mention that these flames didn't pose a threat to her, she even felt a sense of familiarity. As she walked closer, she saw the black wasteland in front of her. Not a single blade of grass grew, and even the rocks looked like they were half melted. The ground was pitch black, and the sand and rocks were filled with a faint energy. 20 to 30 meters in front of this wasteland, small black flames began to jump on the ground. The flames were filled with the same energy as Lin Qiao's. Lin Qiao stepped on the wasteland and took a deep breath. The energy in the air rushed into her nose and entered her entire body, then flowed into her brain. This energy was fatal to others, but for the current Lin Qiao, it was nourishment. After she came over, her body involuntarily opened all the pores on her body, and then absorbed the energy in the air. When she walked to the side of the small flames, she felt her entire body in a hazy state, as if she was not walking on flat ground, and there were no black flames. She felt as if she was walking on the other side, and the feeling under her feet was illusory and unreal. Lin Qiao walked into the flames step by step, and the clothes on her body instantly turned into nothingness. Her slender back, slender waist, perfectly round buttocks, and slender legs were all exposed to the air. Fortunately, no one dared to come here, because as long as they were within a kilometer, the energy in the air would invade their bodies. Then, as if they were poisoned, it wouldn't take long for the energy to melt their bodies. In the end, even their bones would turn into powder. Therefore, no one would come here again. Otherwise, with Lin Qiao's alluring body, no one would be able to recognize her even if they saw her. After Lin Qiao walked into the range of the flames, her hands began to release a large amount of black fog. The black fog continuously poured out, fusing with the surrounding black fog. She kept walking forward, and after walking for about 800 or 900 meters, she finally saw the edge of the cliff. Lin Qiao stood at the edge of the cliff, looking around. She felt that something that belonged to her had fallen here. Until she saw a black, translucent energy crystal core lying quietly on the ground at the edge of the cliff. Seeing this crystal core, Lin Qiao's eyes were hooked. She slowly walked over and squatted down to pick up the crystal core. Could this be, left behind by her self-destruction? Lin Qiao took the crystal core in her hand. Suddenly, the crystal core in her hand lit up. Her mind suddenly fell into a state of dizziness, causing her to fall to the ground. At this moment, the energy in her body suddenly rushed out in large amounts. Her energy kept pouring out, and after maintaining this state for 5 to 6 hours, all the energy in her body and mind was emptied. Only another wave of cool energy was left to protect her body. Just as the energy in Lin Qiao's body was emptied, the energy crystal core in her hand became abnormal again. The crystal core began to fuse into her palm and then disappeared. After the crystal core fused into Lin Qiao's body, the air around her gradually began to revolve around her, causing the rising flames on the ground to elongate, turning into black ribbons that revolved around her. When the flames rose to Lin Qiao's head, they drilled into her forehead. The other flames that surrounded her also converged towards this position. Not long after, Lin Qiao's entire body formed a spatial vortex, absorbing the surrounding black flames and black fog into her body. However, Lin Qiao could no longer see any of this. This was because her consciousness was in a state of chaos. Countless fragmented memories flashed through her mind, running all over the place. Lin Qiao endured the swelling feeling in her head, trying hard to see these memories clearly. Moreover, these memories were like disobedient children, constantly jumping around. She spent a lot of effort to barely grasp some of the images. Then, the scenes in these images were like a primer, reminding her of the situation at the time. Lin Qiao kept grabbing, looking, and thinking. A whole 5 years of memories. She had already forgotten the existence of time. She just wanted to remember everything. Just as Lin Qiao's body entered an abnormal state, the vortex outside her body grew larger and larger, sucking all the black flames towards her. The black flames spun and rose, slowly forming a black tornado vortex. Look over there. Duan and the others, who were 2 kilometers away, suddenly saw a strange change in the black smoke in the direction of the cliff after waiting for an entire afternoon. What's going on? Duan looked in that direction with slight surprise. In everyone's eyes, the black smoke formed an incomparably huge tornado vortex. The surrounding wind also became very strong, blowing leaves away, tree limbs off, and small trees were even uprooted. What's happening over there? They were all a little shocked and confused. They did not know why this phenomenon suddenly appeared. That Miss Lu is in danger inside, someone asked. I don't know. Even if she's in danger, we can't go over. Duan was also very worried and began to feel a little anxious. But they really couldn't go over, because even air couldn't be inhaled in that area. They didn't have gas masks here, so they would only die if they went. Besides, even if they had gas masks, they couldn't stay in there for too long because they would also melt. Then what should we do? Just watch her, get into trouble. Qian Xiaoai asked blankly. After a moment of silence, Duan suddenly said, I'll think of a way. I'll go alone. You all stay here. If I'm not back by night, you all go back to the base by yourselves. Duan. Qian Xiaoai called her disapprovingly. No, we should go. You can't go in. Sister Wan. You can't go. No. Let's go. The others also said one after another. However, Duan said, Be quiet, all of you are so weak that you can't even get close to the edge of the fire source. I'll go and see the situation. Don't worry, I won't let myself die in there. If the situation is not right, I'll retreat. Then how do you want to go in? Qian Xiaoai asked. Let me think. Duan stared in the direction of the black vortex and said with a frown. She really couldn't think of any way to get close to it, because no matter what material it was, it couldn't avoid the melting energy in the fire. In the end, it would only be dissolved. Chapter 503. As for Lin Qiao, she barely managed to find some of the important memories from the past 5 years. She would slowly think about the rest later. The arrival of the apocalypse, the construction of the base, the development of the base, and finally Yang Jianhua's betrayal led to the destruction of the base. Lin Qiao regretted it. She regretted killing that scum Yang Jianhua so easily. When Long Yubai attacked the base, her ability was slowly suppressed. The drug that Yang Jianhua gave her was specially developed to deal with her. Moreover, it wasn't given to her all at once. It started 3 months before Long Yubai's operation. What Lin Qiao told Yang Jianhua was right. Yang Jianhua had secretly drugged her wine, causing her to lose consciousness and fall under the control of the drug. In the end, she was pressed under Yang Jianhua's body. Because she had never been on guard against him, even if she knew that Yang Jianhua would sometimes do something, she just turned a blind eye and didn't look into it. At that time, she foolishly believed that this man wouldn't be so heartless. Even if he wanted to do something, he would at least give the Lin family a way out. But in the end, he didn't. If it wasn't for her final outburst that attracted the attention of Long Yubai and those people, her relatives probably wouldn't have been able to escape from the base this time. Moreover, Lin Qiao opened her eyes. She lowered her head and touched her belly. At that time, she was actually pregnant. When she woke up that day, she found Yang Jianhua lying beside her. At that time, her mind wasn't very clear. She thought that she really drank too much and spilled it. Therefore, although she was very embarrassed, she still explained to Yang Jianhua on the spot that it was just an accident and no one would be responsible for it. Yang Jianhua also accepted it and didn't say anything. Before Lin Qiao had time to think about the details of this matter, her attention was diverted by the information about the Earth Dragon base. When she finally had time to pay attention to this matter, it was already more than half a month before the base was breached. Moreover, she unexpectedly found that there was already a life in her belly. Even if the child was Yang Jianhua's, she couldn't abort it. In the apocalypse, children were the most precious treasures. Lin Qiao really did want a child, because she was already in her 30s. She was a normal woman, and she also wanted a child of her own. However, she didn't have time to fall in love or find a partner. In addition, with Long Yubai coveting the Netherworld King's base and the Earth Dragon base's restless actions, she temporarily gave up the idea of having a child. Moreover, she hadn't decided who she wanted to borrow her sperm from. Now that she unexpectedly got a child from Yang Jianhua, she was pleasantly surprised. Originally, she planned to tell Yang Jianhua, but Yang Jianhua's abnormality made her cancel the idea. She had started to suspect Yang Jianhua half a month in advance. Gradually, she became more vigilant and secretly sent Li Zhang and the others to High City. However, the information she received was false. Long Yubai was not preparing to take action in a few months, but had already been preparing to take action. Because the information he received was fake, Lin Qiao didn't even have time to set up his defensive measures before the enemy came knocking on his door. In the end, when she died, no one but herself knew that she was ready to be a mother. She shouted in her heart, "Little man, are you okay?" Although this child had told her to come into this place with peace of mind and that the energy here had no effect on her, Lin Qiao was still a little worried. She had recovered some of her memory. If she wasn't wrong, little man should be the child who hadn't grown up yet. After realizing this, Lin Qiao's feelings for little man changed. It turned out that there was a reason why little man called her mama in the beginning, but she didn't know how she, who had not been formed at that time, woke up with her in Lu Tianyu's corpse. Moreover, she had never understood the way little man grew up. Mama. Little man is fine. Mama, your thoughts are in a mess now. Mama, do you remember? Little man's voice sounded. Lin Qiao touched her smooth belly and thought to herself, fortunately, you're alive too. That's great, Mama. Are you crying? Although little man couldn't see Lin Qiao's face, she could feel her complicated feelings from her emotional fluctuations. Shame, surprise, regaining what was lost, shame that she couldn't protect her child. Between other relatives and her child's choice, she had no choice but to choose her relatives. So now that she thought about it, a sense of guilt towards little Man spread in her heart. In Lin Qiao's dark green eyes, a red liquid flowed out. She said softly, "I'm sorry, Mama let you die once." Lin Qiao didn't know what she could say to little Man now. She only knew that her child had suffered a reincarnation with her. But fortunately, her child was reborn with her. "I'm sorry. Sorry." Little Man, Lin Qiao kept saying in her heart. "Mama, don't cry, little Man is fine, don't cry, don't cry." Feeling Lin Qiao's sadness, little Man panicked, but now she couldn't come out of Lin Qiao's body to comfort Lin Qiao, so she could only talk to her anxiously. Lin Qiao raised her hand and touched her face. It did feel a little wet. She put down her hand in surprise. Could she still cry after becoming a zombie? But when she looked at her hand, it was all red. That's right, there were no tears in her body, but there was still blood. She smiled faintly. "Mama is fine, but Man, Mama is going to start recovering energy. If you feel uncomfortable, just tell Mama, Mama will stop." "Mama, it's okay, this energy is Mama's. It won't have any bad effect on little Man and it can even help little Man form." Little Man replied happily. Little Man indeed didn't have any effect on Lin Qiao's energy, but when Lin Qiao absorbed the energy later, this energy could actually strengthen the union between little Man's consciousness and the zygote. Lin Qiao let out a sigh of relief. "Is that so? That's good. I'm going to start." After saying that, she waited for little Man to respond, then closed her eyes and raised her palms up. The black flames that were originally surrounding her started to drill into her forehead. Now that Lin Qiao changed her posture, all the flames suddenly rose, and then a large amount of flames split into 3 parts, pouring into her palms and forehead. This time, the amount that entered Lin Qiao's body was more than 100 times more than before. As a result, the black flames and smoke within a radius of several miles were shrinking at a terrifying speed. Chapter 504. Before Duanwan could think of a way to enter the area of the black fire, there was a huge change. "Hey! Look, the black smoke is falling." "No, it should be shrinking." Qian Xiaoai saw that the tornado of black smoke was slowly falling and exclaimed again. "I'll go and take a look." Duanwan suddenly said and ran in the direction of the cliff in a flash. "Sister Wan." The others were startled. "I'll go too." "You guys stay here. Don't go and cause trouble." Qian Xiaoai immediately followed in a flash. After being stopped by Qian Xiaoai's "don't go and cause trouble," the others could only helplessly stop in place and watch them leave anxiously. Over there, Lin Qiao immediately sensed that Duanwan was running towards her position with a person. However, Duanwan was still very cautious and did not directly come over here. Instead, he found a very high position more than 1,000 meters away from here, and then used the binoculars to observe this side from a high position. Lin Qiao was surrounded by black flames at this time. Duanwan couldn't see her at all. However, Duanwan saw that the small black flames that had spread everywhere in this area had disappeared, and all the flames were concentrated on the edge of the cliff. Although Duanwan only knew that their leader self-destructed here, she didn't know that Lin Qiao self-destructed on the edge of the cliff. The flames are all concentrated on the edge of the cliff. If I'm not wrong, that should be the location where the leader had an accident. But why did all the flames go there now? After Duanwan finished looking, she handed the binoculars to Qian Xiaoai next to her. Qian Xiaoai closed her eyes and felt it for a while before taking the binoculars. She put them in front of her eyes and said, "The energy in the air is decreasing rapidly, and it seems that the flames are being absorbed by something. The thing that absorbs the flames should be there. But why don't I see that woman? Could she have been burned by the fire?" As Qian Xiaoai spoke, she moved the binoculars left and right, trying to see if there was a figure of that woman. As for Lin Qiao, it took him nearly 5 hours to convert the flames into energy and absorb it into his body when the sky was already dark. The flames here looked like bunches of small flames that were half a meter tall, but they were only condensed by pure energy. Perhaps it was because these energies had their original form memory, so they condensed into the appearance of the flames. After Lin Qiao absorbed all the energy in these flames, the flames melted. All the energy entered her body. After going through her body, all the flames finally rushed into her mind. It was as if there was a black hole in her mind that kept swallowing all the energy. After the energy of the black fire slowly disappeared, the thick layer of black mist outside gradually condensed and entered Lin Qiao's body along with the fire energy. At this time, Lin Qiao retracted one of his hands and gently grabbed at the black mist, then gestured at his body. A part of the black fog began to condense on her body, forming pieces of military uniform, from underwear to singlet, then to a military shirt, and finally, a long black military jacket appeared on her body. A part of the black mist began to condense on her body into a military uniform, from underwear to a vest, to a military shirt, and finally, a long black military coat appeared on her body. Her slender legs were wrapped under the trousers, and on her feet was a pair of long thick-soled military boots. A black military hat appeared on her head. Under the brim of the hat, a pair of dark green eyes calmly looked forward. Lin Qiao's original clothes and sunglasses were melted by the energy. Now, she could only use the energy to transform into her old clothes. Duan Wan's binoculars didn't have night vision, so when the sky darkened, she couldn't see the figure in the familiar military uniform slowly walking down the cliff after the black mist disappeared. Lin Qiao touched her stomach and said to Little Man, are you still there? Mama. Little Man woke up. Little Man wants to sleep. Little Man's voice came out intermittently, and then became silent again. Hearing Little Man's response, Lin Qiao was relieved. This meant that this child should be fine now. However, after she absorbed the energy, she also absorbed a lot, so she needed to sleep to digest the energy. Lin Qiao slightly raised her head and looked at the dark sky. There were no stars or moon, only dark clouds. She said in her heart, "Yang Jianhua, since you have already died so easily, then I will repay you for giving me a child." Thinking of this, her heart calmed down a little. Otherwise, if Yang Jianhua died before she regained her memory, it would be too easy on him, too easy. Duan Wan and Qian Xiaoai immediately rushed down the mountain after sensing that the energy in the air had been swept away. Then, they ran toward the direction of the mountain. In the distance, they saw a black figure in the night, with clothes fluttering in the wind. Leader. Duan Wan looked at the figure in a daze and murmured in disbelief. Qian Xiaoai also froze in shock. She stared at the black figure in the distance. That familiar outfit, they had seen it every day. That walking posture and pace were still as familiar. No, she is not leader. Qian Xiaoai suddenly interrupted Duan Wan's thoughts. Even if the aura was very similar, even if the energy was very familiar, even if the figure and posture were the same. However, the pair of eyes that shone with a ghostly light in the night still woke him up. The other party approached them like a devil in the dark. Qian Xiaoai, although I have changed my face and body, I am still your leader. Don't forget how your bald head came to be. Lin Qiao's voice came with a faint smile. However, her words made Qian Xiaoai's eyes widen and her mouth open, unable to say a word. It's you. After hearing her voice, Duanwan recognized that she was Miss Lu who had come with them before. However, this Miss Lu's words and tone were exactly the same as the previous Lin Qiao. He was exactly the same as Lin Qiao in the past. Even the teasing tone in his words was so familiar. Yes, it's me. It's also not me. You should know who I am by now. Lin Qiao walked a few meters in front of them, one hand in the pocket of her pants, the other slightly raised. She said, "I'm back." A flame darker than the night rose from her hand, and then slowly formed a pattern under the light of Duanwan and Qian Xiaoai's flashlight. Seeing this pattern, Duanwan's expression became the same as Qian Xiaoai's. But soon, she lowered her head and covered her eyes with her hands. Chapter 505. This symbol was the symbol of their unit. It had a special meaning. If Lin Qiao showed this symbol to Yuan Tianqing or Lin Feng, they would know that it represented their special unit. Of course, apart from Yuan Tianqing and Lin Feng, only Lin Qiao knew about this symbol. Duanwan lowered her head for a few seconds before looking up at Lin Qiao. "Captain." Lin Qiao nodded indifferently. She smiled and looked into Duanwan's eyes. "You should know how this base got its name." "I know it too. Tianqing knows it, and my brother knows it too. Am I right?" Duanwan nodded. When the base was named, they used the nickname of their unit. This was because their mission was to carry out dangerous and bloody operations such as assassinations of terrorists, gangs, and foreign invaders. Because of their high efficiency, their mission success rate was also very high. Everyone in the team had their hands stained with the blood and lives of evil people, so the other units gave them a nickname. The Executioner of Pluto. As for the Netherworld King, it referred to the higher authorities of the country. That was why they named the base Pluto. Lin Qiao's ability was also very special, so it matched the name. Qian Xiaoai didn't know about this and looked at Lin Qiao blankly. Although he couldn't understand the conversation between the two of them, the first sentence that the woman said to him just now made him very surprised. His hair. He wasn't bald in the first place. Because once when he went out with Lin Qiao's army to collect supplies, he was bitten by a mutant snake. When he was poisoned, Lin Qiao used fight poison with poison to clean it up. As a result, his hair started to fall. He looked at Lin Qiao and opened his mouth. You really are." Lin Qiao put the symbol back into his body and then used his finger to count. "Qian Xiaoai, I saved you when you were bitten by a snake, so your hair fell out. You even let Xiao Lu pour water down from upstairs. Also, I haven't settled the score with you for seeing my Wen change." "Oh, Anne. Wait. I know who you are. Please don't say any more, boss." Qian Xiaoai felt a headache coming on as Lin Qiao revealed so many embarrassing things. He quickly begged for mercy. Everyone knew that he was bitten by a poisonous snake and lost all his hair. When Lin Feng's daughter, Lin Xiaolu, poured water down from the second floor, he happened to pass by and got drenched. However, he accidentally saw Lin Wenwen changing his clothes. Other than himself, even Lin Wenwen did not notice it. However, just as he was about to turn around and slip away in embarrassment, he saw Lin Qiao standing behind him with a meaningful smile. Qian Xiaoai's hair stood on end, and she almost ran away. There was no third person who knew about this. After hearing Lin Qiao's words, Duanwan turned her head and stared at Qian Xiaoai's handsome face with a strange expression. "How dare you peep at Wenwen changing? Shameless!" Qian Xiaoai said with a sad face, No. I saw it by accident. I didn't mean it." If you did it on purpose, would you still be standing here? Ha! Lin Qiao said snappily. He walked over and raised his leg to kick. Qian Xiao AI dodged to the side out of habit. He quickly smiled and said, yes, yes, yes. Big sister, you are a magnanimous person. Let's forget about this. Don't let my captain know. The captain he was talking about was actually Lin Feng. If Lin Feng knew, Lin Feng would definitely beat him to death. And now, he completely believed that the person in front of him was their leader. But, didn't you self-destruct? Did you not succeed? Or did you not die? After Duan Wan calmed down from the shock, she stared at Lin Qiao's face. Her face was completely different. And what was with those eyes? If she could not release that black fire Tuan, Duan Wan would never believe that she was Lin Qiao. Lin Qiao touched her stomach, and a dazzling green light flashed in her bright green eyes. A thick murderous intent flashed in her eyes. It was too easy to let Yang Jianhua die. He actually had his eyes on Wen from the beginning, and then spent a few years to lie to me and everyone. Her voice was calm, but there was a deep chill hidden in it. If he did not spend so much time, how could he have lied to everyone? Duan Wan said calmly. Lin Qiao nodded. That's right, if he did not save her from the beginning, and spend a few years by her side, how could she believe him? How could she possibly believe him? Moreover, this man actually hid his feelings so deeply. I am indeed dead. My body exploded into pieces and turned into air by my own energy. Only the crystal core was left intact. I just went to pick it up. Lin Qiao touched the middle of her forehead. After the energy cleansing, Lin Qiao directly broke through level 7. She was now a level 7 level 2 zombie king, and not an ordinary level 2 zombie king. Then what happened to you now? Duan Wan stared at her face curiously. When I woke up, I became this woman. She also just died, and I woke up when she turned into a zombie. You don't know how terrible my body was when I first woke up. Lin Qiao touched her face and said. Duan Wan and Lin Feng looked at her with their eyes wide open. So, you really became a different person. And a zombie. Lin Qiao nodded again. Looking at her eyes, she already knew who she was, so she did not intend to hide it. Duan Wan and Lin Feng looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost, and could not react for a long time. What should they do? Their boss became a zombie. Would they be hungry in the future and eat them? Well, now that things are done, let's go back to the base. By the way, Duan Wan, report the list of people who will leave tomorrow. Don't take anything else, leave the car, food, and supplies for those who don't want to leave. Lin Qiao glanced at the two people who were stunned and suddenly said. Duan Wan came back to her senses and asked curiously, leave all of them? Then how do we go? We don't even have a car, you don't want us to walk, do you? Saying that, she looked at Lin Qiao with a blank face. Lin Qiao nodded and said, leave all of them, don't worry about the car. She waved her hand and took the lead to walk in the direction where they had parked. Suddenly, she stopped and turned to the two people and said, oh, by the way, don't call me boss when we go back. Call me Miss Liu, my current identity is Liu Tianyu. Duan Wan and Qian Xiaoai looked at each other blankly, but Lin Qiao's words were already in the form of an order, so even if they did not understand, they had to nod and agree. Chapter 506. When they got into the car, Duan Wan drove, Lin Qiao sat in the passenger seat, and Qian Xiaoai climbed onto the back. The others stared at Lin Qiao in astonishment. Lin Qiao's clothes had changed. She'd been wearing a military camouflage outfit, but now she was wearing a plain black military uniform. They'd seen it somewhere before. Lin Qiao's hair had grown a lot longer, and she was wearing a black military cap. More importantly, had she gone to that place? Had she gone in? Or hadn't she? They didn't dare ask, and only watched her in silence. They didn't know why, but after Lin Qiao changed her clothes, they didn't dare to look her in the eye. Lin Qiao narrowed her eyes as she looked out the window. Her eyes were like those of a wolf in the night. Her hand rested unconsciously on her belly. Once she got back to Hangzhou, she'd have to build a base, and at the same time figure out how to deal with that bitch Long Yubai. She had returned. Since she had recalled those memories, it meant that she could wholeheartedly take revenge. Young Jianhua was dead, but there was still Long Yubai, Lu Zhuofeng, Zhou Qinghao, He Mu, and Su Changmu. They were the 5 who'd forced her to self-destruct. All 5 were 7th-level adepts, but their leader and deputy leader were among them. Lu Zhuofeng was one of the 2 leaders of Hidden Cloud City. He'd brought his deputy leader Zhou Qinghao to help Long Yubai because of a deal. They were short on resources, and didn't have a single water adept. That was why they decided to work with the neighboring Earth Dragon base. They traded weapons made in Hidden Cloud City for water. It was called a trade, but it was more like borrowing Long Yubai's water adepts. He Mu was one of the 3 leaders of Skyfire Base in the northwest, and Su Changmu was his deputy. Skyfire and Earth Dragon's cooperation was similar to Hidden Cloud Cities, all for water. For some reason, the number of water adepts in Earth Dragon was 3 times that of the other bases. Lin Qiao had checked on their working relationship, but it was only a general relationship on the surface. As for their secret relationship, according to her intelligence, Long Yubai had fooled around with every man in the world. In this post-apocalyptic world where women were about to become national treasures, a man who was as beautiful as water was also very popular. It was just that Long Yubai's character and views were a little unorthodox. It should be said that he was a little obsessed. As long as he wanted something, even if he didn't have the ability, he would try his best to get it. His body had always been one of his best weapons. Originally, these bases could live well on their own, but they insisted on helping Long Yubai deal with her Netherworld King's base. Very good. Now, her family was ruined, and so many people died. Since that was the case, she would just have to wait for her revenge against the zombie army. Earth Dragon, Hidden Cloud City, Skyfire Base. Let's start with the weakest Earth Dragon. He happened to be the main culprit. After driving for 2 to 3 hours, they finally arrived at the Netherworld King's base. When Duanwan and Qian Xiaoai saw the zombies at the entrance of the Netherworld King's base, they knew what was going on. Alright, there was a zombie king in their car, how could these soldiers not run? In the world of zombies, they were completely dominated and controlled by high-level zombies. I finally know what that frog of yours is. Duanwan looked at her and suddenly said. Oh. Lin Qiao turned her head and gave her a lazy look, but didn't say anything. Huh? What is it? When the people in the back heard this, they all looked at Duanwan curiously. Even if I tell you, you won't believe me. Don't ask. Duanwan glanced at the people in the back seat. Ah, why? The people in the back didn't know what was going on, so they looked at Duanwan curiously. Because she made that frog up. Duanwan waved at him and said. Therefore, Li Hongxing was busy absent-mindedly until the end of the work. Chapter 507. After Lin Qiao entered the space, her sharp aura surprised Qiu Lily. The aura of your clothes is so strong. Where did it come from? Your hair grew longer again. Oh, your level increased again. Did you level up again? She felt Lin Qiao's aura and looked at Lin Qiao in surprise. She felt that Lin Qiao had changed again. She was still the same person, but the feeling changed again. Her aura was stronger and sharper than before, and her level had also increased. Qiao Lily felt that Lin Qiao was suppressing her. Lin Qiao looked at her clothes and smiled faintly. Oh, these clothes are made from my own energy. My clothes are all gone. She walked into the small building and went upstairs to her room to change into a set of clothes. The first time she used energy to make clothes, it made her feel unsafe. You leveled up again. Whoa, why do you level up like a rocket? I just leveled up not long ago, and you leveled up again. Why is it that zombies are so hard to level up, but to you, it's as easy as eating and sleeping? Qiao Lily said gloomily. Lin Qiao lifted her hand and brushed away the long hair that covered her eyes. She smiled at her and said, Are you jealous? Pfft, I'm not. Qiao Lily raised her head and turned to the side. She looked up at the wall. There was nothing there. My memory has returned. There's no mistake. I am indeed the leader of this Netherworld King's base, Netherworld Flame. Lin Qiao sat on the sofa and leaned back. Her legs were placed on the coffee table. She raised a finger as she spoke. Then, a small black flame emerged from her finger and stood on the tip of her finger, swaying. That means. When Qiao Lily heard this, she immediately moved closer to her. She wanted to sit on the sofa next to her, but when she got close to the flame in her hand, Qiao Lily silently turned around and sat on the other side. They said that you self-destructed. Now that you think about it, is it true? Qiao Lily asked. Lin Qiao twirled the flame on her finger and nodded. That's right, I self-destructed. I will find them for revenge when the time is right. Them? Who? Qiao Lily asked. The leaders of Skyfire Base and Hidden Cloud City, Lin Qiao answered. Wow, then with the addition of the Earth Dragon Base, won't you have to deal with 3 bases? Can the few people in our new base do it? Qiao Lily calculated for her. Why not? I didn't ask Lin Feng and the rest to go as well. What I said was that I could bring the zombie army along. Not to mention that there were so many zombies in the world, even the zombies in a province were enough to take down a base, as long as there was a commander. Since I have such a powerful army, why should I let them go? Lin Qiao smirked and said with a confident and evil smile. Although her smile was a little sinister, the look in her eyes was ice-cold. Qiao Lily looked at her and suddenly stood up. She ran to the corner and squatted down. She touched the little tiger on the ground and looked back at Lin Qiao. No wonder you wanted to catch so many high-level zombies along the way. You had this plan all along? She asked. Awoo, the little tiger was awake. It could move, but it couldn't run around. Qiao Lily had found a rope and tied it to the side to prevent it from running. No, I wanted to take these zombies back to defend the new base. But now they have more than one mission. Lin Qiao put away the flame on his finger and turned around to lie on the back of the sofa, looking in the direction of Qiao Lily and the little tiger. The little guy's healing is fast. You don't have to tie it up and it'll be fine. She said. But it'll run around and pull at its wounds. Qiao Lily rubbed the little tiger's head. The little tiger's round head dodged left and right, refusing to let her touch it. The next morning, everyone gathered in the square. Duanwan and the others slept for a few hours before they woke up with a headache. They washed their faces before they appeared in front of everyone. Psychics were still very energetic, but they didn't know how many days they hadn't showered. They did look a little dirty. Duanwan stood on the platform and looked at the people who had gathered in the square early in the morning. When we leave this time, we will leave all the resources here for you. Whether you live or die, it's your own business. Duan said to everyone expressionlessly. The people below looked at each other and didn't say anything. Ha! We didn't take anything with us. How are we going to get to Hangzhou, which is more than 1,000 kilometers away? Those who were going to leave together asked in surprise. You don't have to worry about this. We have other preparations on the way. But we won't touch the resources here. Duan said to them. Then, what about the car? Can we drive the car? Someone asked again. When you leave the base, there will naturally be a car for you to sit in. If you don't believe me, you can stay and wait for the opportunity to go to the new base. Duan said. After she said that, the people below began to talk again. Many people decided not to leave because she said that they would not bring anything with them. Duan had already expected them to have such thoughts. She said loudly, if you follow me this time, I can find a job for you when you arrive at the new base. The salary will also be better in the future. But this time, if you don't follow me and find the new base on your own, you can enter the base for free, but the salary won't be as good. Think about it carefully before making a decision. As she said that, she looked at her watch and continued, it's 7 in the morning now. I will give you 3 more hours. We will leave at 10 o'clock. Those who want to leave in 3 hours, gather here at the square. Then Duan, Chen Xiaoai, and the others returned to the office of the government building and waited. At this time, Lin Qiao suddenly appeared beside them. She looked at them and asked, I wonder how many people will be willing to follow us this time. At this time, there were only Duan, Chen Xiaoai, Li Hongxing, Ding Datong, and a few others in the room. After seeing Lin Qiao appear, except for Duan, the other men were a little reserved and didn't dare to make a sound. At this time, Lin Qiao had changed her clothes. She didn't have the pressure of yesterday's strict military uniform. But even so, when they saw Lin Qiao's strange face and eyes, they were still a little scared. Because there were not many people here, Lin Qiao didn't wear sunglasses. She looked at the others and said, Are you so afraid of me? When you followed me before, you didn't seem to be so careful. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.